What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto, known as the Troublemaker of Konoha and Demon Child? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. They called me demon, monster and told me I was unwanted by my parents. They said I was a good for nothing and a danger for the village. So I showed them that I was strong. I showed them that I was no danger to the village, but not one of them understood. I was giving my life for their safety every day. I fought for them, I bled for them. I even gave up my childhood for them, but they didn't care. Now I am alone, unwanted by everyone, but at the same time not allowed to leave. They may have broken me, but I will not let them pay for it by putting them in danger. Look, it's the demon brat again. I wonder what he's up to now. Probably one of his stupid pranks again. The glares had intensified over the years, but after I had turned 10 they didn't just stick with simply glaring. No, they got violent. It reached from a simple glare to being raped in the middle of the street. Nothing and no one stopped them from doing it. Not even me. I was alone in this cruel village. So to keep everyone in peace I put up a mask. A mask, making me look dumb and naive. I'm not, though. My codename is Kitsune. With my now 14 years I am one of the strongest Anbu members. I was the fastest, just as fast as my father used to be. I was the strongest, just like Tsunade Ba-chan. I had perfected my seals and my body was now full of them, keeping whatever I had close to me so the villagers wouldn't be able to get to them. Walking the halls of the Hokage Tower gave me several respected bows. That was as long as I had my fox mask on. They wouldn't be showing me shit if I was just walking through this building. Kitsune, I have an important mission for you. It will maybe take several years to complete it, but I am sure you are the only one I can trust with this. Staring at the old man Hokage from my bowing position, I gave him a simple nod. I was sure of my abilities, but there was something in his voice that made me wonder about this mission. I want you to watch over our last Uchiha. You will be put in his class and go through the last year as Naruto Uzumaki. The prankster everyone believes you to be. I looked at the old man with wide eyes. He actually wanted me to give up my Anbu position just to guard some dumb Uchiha that can't look after himself. Hokage-sama, I am sure there are plenty of other people suited for something as protecting the last Uchiha. Before I could continue my thought any further, the old man shut me up and put out his hand. You will get your mask back as soon as Sasuke becomes a successful Chunin. Until then you will be Naruto Uzumaki, the prankster of Konoha, and dead last in your class. Slowly I placed my mask in his outstretched hand. This mask was the only thing keeping me safe at night from those villagers. Without it, I could kiss my good night sleep goodbye. Not that I slept a whole lot anyway. Wear this to complete your act and there will be no slip-ups and the Uchiha must be kept unharmed. I will also assign Kakashi Hitaki as your Junin. I believe the two of you have worked together already and should be able to keep him safe. Looking at the weird suit he was holding up, I slowly grabbed it with my pale fingers. It was colored in an obnoxious orange and way too visible to be walking around unnoticed. How in the world was I supposed to hide with that thing on? You know what transformations to put on and how to behave. Change before you leave this room. With that, the old man walked out of the room. Stunned, I just looked at the suit and sighed. No other choice. With heavy limbs, I shed myself from my beloved Anbu suit and got into this weirdly colored suit. Looking in the mirror for a few seconds, I sighed. I would miss my pale blonde hair that was put up at the back of my head. I would miss my icy blue eyes that could make a grown man shiver in his boots. But most I would miss my face. Not to sound self-centered, but I had to admit that I was attractive. For my 14 years, I was tall and thin. I had muscles, but they hardly showed with my thin stature. My hands were defined and my fingers long. On every inch except for my face were seals carved into my flesh. My face was slim. My cheekbones stuck out, and on each cheek, I had a band-aid covering those ugly whiskers. My eyebrows thin and my eyes sharp. With closed eyes, I put on the transformation and looked into ocean blue eyes. I was shorter but still thin. The whiskers were now openly shown on my tan skin and my hair was a bright blonde. With a sigh, I turned and left the office. A wide smile on my face. There was nothing to smile about. How could the old man make me do this stupid shit? The glares were back as soon as I left the office. I wasn't scared of the glares or any of the villagers. No, they were not even close to a threat to me. My only fear was putting this village in danger. They had discriminated against me, but I was still stupid enough to keep these idiots safe from whatever came from the outside. The night had been horrible. No possible hiding space, and after getting raped in an alleyway they had finally left me for dead. New cuts and bruises now occupied my skin instead of the many seals. The next morning I got up from the dirty street and brushed off the dust. Walking away from the scene, I unconsciously put my hand up to my heart. Originally in that space was one of my biggest seals. In it, I had stored my mother's katana and my father's special kunai with his Hokage cape. It wasn't hard to figure out who my parents were. Especially if you had the Kyuubi as your best and only friend and a glare that could make a man pee himself. It was time for my first day at at the academy. I never went there. I had simply worked my way up in the shadows. No one but the old man knew how I did it, and he had supported me full-heartedly, and now I was here. In front of my soon-to-be personal hell. The place that would make me go to my limits just to keep this brat safe. I was pretty sure he was safe as long as he stayed within these walls, and I doubted that his brother would be coming anytime soon for this brat. This mission would at least take 2 years. A year to finish the academy and another one to get ready for the Chunin exams. 2 years of no hiding and constant idiotic smiling. Why would the old man put me up to this? I was trained for assassinations, not for protecting a useless little self-centered brat. Being the last Uchiha and all, he must think so highly of himself. Sure of himself that he was this generation's prodigy. But he wasn't. I was. I had long passed even the great Itachi Uchiha himself. I had become an Anbu before he even left the village. We had a few missions together where I could analyze him without being spotted, and that dude had some serious issues. A huge inferiority complex and a sickness not yet discovered. He was bound for doom. I knew it. I knew it before even Itachi himself. Today we will be having a new student. He will join you for the last year before the Genin exams. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. Please be friendly to him and don't cast him out. That was my cue to walk in. I didn't give a rat's ass about all these kids. My only target was the Uchiha brat. I couldn't have cared less about their weird stares and even weirder questions. My target was sitting next to the window, just glaring at the air. What a bucket full of sunshine. This will be a great mission. Screw you, old man, and your stupid S-rank missions. I will not survive this. The great Kitsune would die here. I would die protecting a self-centered brat and now officially dead last of this class. Please, someone, come and shoot me. These classes were ridiculous. I actually had to try to be dead last. What in the world were these people teaching here? All this stuff was preschool knowledge. Isn't this supposed to be the graduating class? I wouldn't even wish this on my worst enemy. Jashin, please help me. Hey, Kit, why are we in this cramped up room? Well, funny story actually. The old man gave us the mission to watch the Uchiha brat over there until he becomes a Chunin. That will at least be another 2 years. What was that geezer thinking? We aren't trained in protecting people. I want to rip someone's head off, not make sure this kid doesn't fall and scrape his knee. I feel you, Kura, but whatever the old man says goes. You know that as well as any other ninja in this village. I mean, have you seen these hideous clothes? I look like a carrot. I hate this. Hey, think positive, just 2 more years of this and then it's back to S-rank missions until we drop. Try to enjoy a bit of your childhood. You did give the rest of it away already. Why not make the most of it now? Yeah, maybe you're right, but this school is no good. How is that Uchiha supposed to become a Chunin if he can hardly become a Genin with this knowledge? I don't know, Kit. I'll go and take a nice nap, seeing as you won't be fighting anyone anytime soon. With that, Kurama was gone again. That stupid, old, lazy fox left and I was left alone in my misery. Well, at least I can catch up on my sleep here. 7 hours of sleep every day doesn't sound bad. The villagers won't be able to do anything to me here. Laying my head down, darkness came over me not even seconds later. It's been a few months since I started this ridiculous mission. Every month I had to give a lengthy report to the Hokage, who would after that present it to the council. As I had guessed, the Uchiha really thought incredibly highly of himself. He was top of the class. Oh, so smart and oh, so strong. This was pathetic. For these past 5 months, I had not even once slept at night. The beatings had been getting worse. Not one day would go by without me ending up in an alleyway beaten to a bloody pulp. It was just 7 more months before I could finally graduate with this brat. Being dead last came easier to me now. I had figured out that as long as I constantly caught up on my sleep in class and just left the regular quizzes blank, there was no problem in continuing my charade. I, now and then, looked at the quiz that was handed to me and answered every question in my head without a problem, but no one in this class knew about it. After I went over the answers, I just laid back down and went back to sleep. Within a few months, we would be starting to practice taijutsu. I'm not sure how to properly fail those yet, but I guess I will have to come up with a plan. Maybe I could increase my already 400 pounds heavy gravity seals even more. It would make me stronger in the long run, and while these kids were practicing it would slow me down for a while. Months came and went. It was horrible. I hated this mission. By now I was considering going rogue. What did I actually have to lose? A village that didn't even see me as a human being? I knew I would lose the old man. Ba-chan and Arrow Sennin are always out of town. So maybe I could go and find them. Train with them. Make myself even stronger and show these people who I really was. What they had lost. But then I think back to my mission. If I failed this, I would be thrown out of this village. I was sure of that. I believed the council wanted me to fail this mission. It was the easy way out for them. The greatest Anbu was watching their beloved Uchiha, and if he failed they would finally get rid of the demon brat. Graduation came and left. It wasn't anything spectacular. I passed with 3 poorly made clones. They could function, but I had made sure to make them look kind of droopy. Something you would expect from the dead last. After graduation, I didn't stick around to see all these happy families. I made my way to the Hokage Tower. It was time for my monthly report. I had finished it while I was waiting to be called for my exam. Walking through these hallways, glares were thrown my way. I just walked past them with a weirdly large smile on my face. There were only 2 places where I could be myself right now. One of them was my personal training ground. The old man had given it to me for my birthday a few years back. The second was the Hokage office. The Anbu had to leave the room whenever I turned up, and then I was allowed to release this stupid transformation. Naruto, I see you passed your genin exam. With a smile, the old man sent the 4 Anbu away, and with a sigh my transformation disappeared. Still smiling, he looked at me questioningly. My expression went back to its stoic self, and without any complaints, I pulled out my report. Reporting in on the Uchiha brat. He is still a self-centered brat and nowhere near ready to face Itachi. I don't really care what you teach in the academy, but whatever it is, it's not going to push Sasuke fast and far enough to become a chunin in a year's time. He and I won't be happy about that. I am not staying in this horrendous transformation for longer than another year. After that passes and the Uchiha is not a chunin, you will have to find a different fool to play babysitter for you. I handed him the scroll that I had finished not too long ago and sat down on the floor. My hand went through my now cut light blonde hair. I can't keep this up for much longer, Hokage-sama. Kurama and I are getting restless. We were made for killing, not for babysitting. If I don't get a real mission anytime soon, I will have to go and find myself a target. My voice was monotone. Not 1 ounce of emotion was mixed in it. The old man visibly flinched at it. I didn't care, though. He was the closest thing that I had to a family, but I couldn't show that I actually had a weakness. With a sigh, the old man looked down at the scroll and gave me a nod. I will see to it that you're sent on an assassination mission in due time. Please just endure this for another year, Naruto. The council is happy with your work. Don't let them throw you out like they are planning to do. He gave me a weak smile and dismissed me with a wave of his hand. I gave him a nod, and with 1 hand sign the transformation was back up and a huge smile was on my lips. Well then, see ya later, Gigi. With that, I ran and looked for a hiding place for tonight. Too bad that I couldn't actually use my apartment to hide. The villagers knew of the apartment in the red light district and paid me regular visits. My door by now didn't even have a lock anymore. I just avoided going there altogether. No matter what happened, from now on I would need to find hiding places around Konoha. It's been several days without sleep and daily beatings. Today was the day we would meet our Junin sensei. I knew my team already and who would be my sensei. The old man had let me know a few days ago. I was also informed that I would finally get a mission in 2 days. I now was on my way to meet my team and get all of this bullshit out of the way. Team 7 will consist of Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Iruka kept on rambling about other teams after that. I knew the Uchiha would be on my team. It would seem logical for everyone considering I was dead last and he the top of the class. Well, at least that's how it's supposed to look for everyone else. In reality, I was just this little brat's babysitter for another year. We waited for our sensei for 3 hours. I knew Hitaki was someone that had the tendency to show up late, but I certainly was not about to deal with this. My nerves were already on the edge of breaking because of this brat that was still sitting in his seat glaring at pure air. I didn't need that lazy Junin stretching them even more. When he finally showed, I was ready to rip his head clean off. My first impression of you guys is, you're boring. Meet me on the roof in 10. With that, he poofed away. The Uchiha and the annoying Banshee started walking upstairs. As soon as they were out of sight, my body flickered, and with a swirl of black fire, I arrived next to Kakashi. Please do refrain from showing up late in the future. I can't deal with you two next to that self-centered Uchiha brat. If you do, don't blame me if you get caught in a lethal accident. I felt my eyes flicker red and see Kakashi visibly swallow at my threat. He better be scared. I haven't killed in a year and had to put up with verbal and physical abuse to top it off. I was certainly not in the mood for his lazy bullshit. It won't happen again, Taiko. I gave him a nod and sat down on the stairs in front of him. It better not. The other two showed up not long after our conversation, and our sensei asked us to introduce ourselves. Put together, the pink kid was an annoying fangirl and the brat was an idiot wanting revenge. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait for the ramen to be ready. My hobbies are pranking and my wish for the future is to show people the real me. My eyes had turned passive as I stated my wish. The Junin standing in front of us noticed and gulped silently. The Uchiha brat also seemed to have caught a glimpse of my real eyes. They had turned back to the ocean blue in a split second, but Sasuke was staring at me intently after our introduction. I wonder sometimes what was going on in his head besides revenge and his self-inflated ego. Kakashi had announced our second exam and disappeared. Rolling my eyes, my face turned stoic and I made my way past my teammates. They didn't notice. Both of them were too focused on their conversation at hand, and as soon as their backs were turned to me, I disappeared in a swirl of black fire again. The bell tests the next day just showed what a brat the Uchiha really was. With a miracle, we all passed and I was now standing in front of the gate, ready to leave and kill something. The only thing holding me back was the obvious reason for me dressed like this wasn't allowed to leave, and without my mask, I couldn't even sneak out. So, I was waiting for the Hokage to release me. The old man had taken his sweet time, but when he finally arrived he handed me my scroll and my mask. I want you back in 3 hours. No matter what happens, don't go too crazy. With a firm nod, I was about to rush out of the village when a certain brat stopped me. Where are you going, Dobi? I rolled my eyes. Not now, idiot. Can't you see I have somewhere else to be? Why would I tell you something like that, Teme? Naruto, leave now. You have 2 hours and 55 minutes left. My eyes widened at the Hokage's words, and ignoring the Uchiha I ran out of the village, and as soon as I was out of sight I dropped my transformation and put on my mask. This should be good. An hour and 30 minutes later I walked back to the village soaked in blood. None was actually my own. Running towards the Hokage office I knocked patiently. Come in. Walking inside I saw my teammates lined up and looking at me shocked. Hokage-sama, I have completed my mission. Here is the report. The old man gave me a nod and carefully examined my clothes. Go and get washed up, Kitsune. I will talk to you after I am done discussing matters with Team 7 here. With a nod, I disappeared behind one of the doors in his office. My advanced hearing made it possible for me to hear their conversation without a problem. Now, why have you come to me on your day off? I could hear the soft voice of the old man that he uses with younger ninja. We were looking for Naruto. Do you know where he could be, Hokage-sama? Pretty sure that Kakashi knew that I was away on a mission today, and why were they looking for me? It's our day off today. He should be back soon, Kakashi. Why are you asking? Sasuke reported that he saw him leaving the village. Ah, yes. He did leave the village for a little errand. I made him run for me. Nothing major. Just send him out to get me some herbs from the woods right outside our walls. Who was that Anbu that just walked in covered in blood? Sasuke's voice was as confident as ever. How that brat annoyed me. That was Kitsune, one of our best Anbu captains. The old man was calmly explaining my position to my so-called teammates. Captain? He didn't look any older than us. The annoying banshee was screeching and hurting my poor eardrums. He isn't that much older. Actually, he is 2 years older than both of you. Kitsune was made a genin with 4, he ranked up to chunin with 6 and became a junin with 7 and later on an anbu with 9. Now he is 15 and one of our strongest fighters. Finishing cleaning up and changing into a casual white shirt and anbu black pants. I walked back into the office. My team was still there and was now staring at my face. I was holding my fox mask in my right hand, handing it back to the old man. This is Kitsune. Be nice and introduce yourself. The old man's hand was on top of my head and he made me bow slightly. Rolling my eyes without them noticing, I straightened myself up again. Nice to meet you guys. The Pinkett had been seemingly put into a trance and was staring at me with blank eyes, and the Uchiha was turning pink. Kakashi just simply hid his face behind his orange book. What up with all these tattoos? The Haruno seemed to have gotten her control back and was now intently looking at the black seals spread all over my body. They're seals. I have them all over my body. To make my point, I slightly lifted my shirt and showed them a bit of my stomach that was covered with many seals, and the seal of Kurama was also slightly visible. I have different things in them, but in most are just my weapons. Channeling some chakra into my right hand, I pulled out some senbon needles out of the seal that was placed in my right palm. The Haruno seemed confused and the Uchiha had a weird combination of jealousy and curiosity. I was glad no one but Kakashi and Gigi knew how I actually looked. This did always give me the upper hand here in the village. Is there anything else I can help you with, Team 7? They all shook their head and left not long after. I finished talking about my mission with the old man. I started making my way out again, looking like the blonde idiot. It was time to find a hiding place for tonight. I guess I had successfully found a hiding place tonight because of the morning after I had actually felt refreshed. Today was the day that we would get another boring D-rank mission. I don't know how much longer I can do these stupid missions. They're pointless and are only put in by villagers that are simply too lazy to do their own job. We just got back with the devil's cat Tora. I understood her, but I had caught her so many times by now that she knew my scent and simply walked up to me. Each time she did, she tried to get me to hide her from her owner. I get that her owner sucks, but I can't really do anything for her. Alright, your next mission will be picking weeds and babysitting an elder's grandchildren. The old man kept on rambling. No matter how much I wanted to say something, I couldn't. Not even being in this transformation. It would be disrespectful to the Hokage, and after serving him and the village for 11 years I couldn't do that anymore. You know, you are way too kind and respectful for your own good, Kit. Yay, I know, but he is the man that kept us safe and gave us a reason to live. Can you actually blame me? No, I get it, but please at least ask for a higher rank mission. I can't do these chores anymore. Alright, as long as you stop whining I will ask. I could hear Kurama huff in anger when I said that last bit, but he didn't actually say anything back to me. Gigi, I know I'm interrupting your ramble about missions, but would you mind giving us a C rank? These D ranks aren't getting us anywhere. They're just plain boring and don't actually get us any practice in what it means to be a ninja. The old man looked at me and silently asking if it would actually be alright while Uruka was giving us a full lecture about missions and ranks and shit. Alright, he just simply cut off Uruka's rambling and the brown-haired man was taken aback by this. You want a higher rank, you'll get it. It's going to be a simple C-rank mission, though. You will have to escort someone back to the Land of Waves safely and make sure he finishes his job. Simply looking at the Hokage, I knew there would be more to this mission than he let on. Maybe I could rip some head off without them brats noticing. A door opened and a drunk old geezer walked in. Well, this is going to be fun. This is a joke, right? You kids can't possibly be ninjas. Especially you, the small one with the face of an idiot. I just simply ignored the insult to the surprise of the others that didn't know the real me. You're kidding. I am not escorting some drunk geezer out of this village. I simply looked at the Hokage with my passive face. He knew I was serious, but he also knew that I wouldn't dare go against his orders. No, I am not. You will keep him safe. End of discussion. Naruto. With a sigh, I gave up and bowed ever so slightly. No one but the old man and Kakashi caught me bowing in respect. That bow was as good as an answer the old man would get, and he was happy with it. He understood my silent body language after having me work for him for 11 years. Great. Now you guys will leave in an hour's time. Naruto, you will join me in my office. With that, everyone of Team 7 but for me left. The old man stood up and walked out of the room with me close behind him. Now, I want Sasuke and Sakura out of harm's way when you leave this village. You are not allowed to leave in this get-up, so you will join them as Kitsune. You will not get your mask and you will not let those two know who you really are. I will come with you to the gate to explain the situation myself. With a sigh, I simply gave a deep bow and with a puff my transformation was gone. Getting dressed back in my loose shirt and black Anbu pants with black ninja shoes, I was ready to go to the gate. Together we made our way through the village. No glares, no nothing. What a life. The old man was walking slightly in front of me, showing his higher rank, which I respected and simply followed after him. The gate was slowly coming closer and I couldn't wait to finally get out of this place again and maybe even rip some heads off. When we finally arrived, Team 7 looked up to the Hokage and questioned, "Where is Naruto?" The pink banshee wasn't as loud this time around, but that probably was because she was talking to the Hokage. Well, Naruto isn't allowed to leave the village for such a long duration. So he will have to stay behind and help me with some paperwork while you will be going on this mission. For safety reasons, I will send Kitsune here with you. We can't have any of you cute little genin getting hurt. He won't act unless he needs to, so just try to not annoy him. With that, the Hokage gave me a kind smile and a pat on the head. What looked affectionate to others was a sign telling me to not screw up my job. Well, now that we are all here, we should leave. It will be a long walk from here. Not questioning Kakashi, everyone started walking out of the village. It didn't take long when the pink-haired girl started asking questions. Not that I'm complaining, but why is Naruto not allowed to leave the village? She was looking at Kakashi, but he simply looked at me to explain. Probably because he couldn't be bothered with coming up with an excuse for me. Naruto is, let's say, special. The council doesn't want him outside of the village for numerous reasons, but I am not allowed to tell you any of them. If you actually want to know, why don't you simply ask him when we get back? She gave me a nod but then started to visibly think again. Then why are you here if this is a simple C rank? God, this girl asks too many questions. That is simply because Duckbit over there isn't allowed to leave either. Him being the last Uchiha, the council doesn't want him in harm's way, but they don't have the control over him as they do with Naruto. So they send me to make sure he doesn't get into trouble out here. The insult on Sasuke made her frown, but the rest made her look up to him even more. I don't need protection from some weak idiot. I rolled my eyes at the brat. Listen here, brat. I have been doing this stuff way longer than you, and believe me if I tell you that I really don't want to be here either. I wasn't trained to babysit some self-centered genin but to kill. This mission is stupid and pointless. I don't give a rat's ass about you or what will happen to you. For all I care, you can go die in a ditch. That didn't seem to amuse the Uchiha as much as it amused me to finally tell him what I thought about him and this mission. Neither did Sakura. She started stomping her way over to me when she was picked up by Kakashi and pushed behind him. How dare you insult Sasuke like that? You are nothing but a bug compared to him. I visibly saw Kakashi start to sweat. He knew what I was capable of and he really seemed to care for these brats. My eyes left the pink creature and went up to my former teammate. He gave me an apologetic smile. Sorry about them, Taiko. They don't really understand their place quite yet. I'll make sure to teach them. Narrowing my eyes at him, I gave him a nod and threw 2 chakras-infused senbon needles in a puddle. After they all passed the puddle, I saw it vanish. Instead, there were 2 hidden mist shinobi laying on the ground unconscious. With a roll of my eyes, I simply sealed them in one of the few scrolls one actually carry with me and caught up to the rest of them that were now talking about the Land of Waves. It was nothing worth mentioning. Just some things about them not having shinobi and any money for that matter. I was tired of this mission and this slow-ass walk. We either had to speed up or Kakashi would have to carry me. 'Cause I was about to fall asleep walking. I tiredly rubbed my eyes like a child and walked up to Kakashi. After I pulled on his sleeve to get his attention, he noticed my tired eyes and put his weird book away. A second later I was on his back and my face snuggled into his neck. Taiko, do you mind taking off the weights? You're kinda heavy. Without any complaint I took off my gravity seals. I felt Kakashi straighten up a bit and walk more easily. I finally drifted off into sleep while being surrounded by the smell of forest and autumn. Thanks, Kashi. My words were so quiet I hoped he wouldn't hear them, but a hand on my almost white hair and a gentle "No problem, Naru" told me otherwise. We were sitting in the boat that was carrying us over the lake towards the land of the waves. I was in Kakashi's lap seeing as everyone still thought I was sleeping. So how come Sasuke is allowed to leave with protection but Naruto isn't? It's that annoying ass Banshee asking again. I felt Kakashi stiffen slightly and let out a sigh. Kitsune already told you that the council has more control over Naruto than Sasuke. They can make Naruto stay with them but not Sasuke. Yes, I understood that, but why is it like that? Why is it that her mind was just coming up with questions while mine already thought about 10 different ways to kill her? Sakura, I can't answer you those questions. It will probably happen more often from now on. So you guys need to get used to Kitsune here. I promise as long as you guys don't annoy him, he will make sure none of us will get hurt no matter what. How come you trust someone that is our age with your life, sensei? Kakashi finally put his book away and pulled me slightly closer. Kitsune is a lot stronger than any of us here. I used to work with him until I started working under him. His mind is pretty amazing and his fighting style is terrifying. Try to not make him your enemy. I looked up towards the weirdo that was still holding me tight. He was wearing his usual closed-eyed smile. I weirdly enough felt comfortable right here against his toned chest. You give me too much credit, Kakashi. The white-haired Junin looked down at me and gave me a warm smile. God, what a cute smile. Nah, you really are that amazing, Taiko. Receiving all these compliments made me kind of embarrassed. I felt my cheeks heat up a bit. I could see the amusement and a bit of shock in Kakashi's eyes before I buried my face back in his chest. We finally reached shore, but now Kakashi refused to let me down. Kakashi, please let me down. I can walk perfectly fine myself. I could hear the snicker of our companions. This was anything else but funny. I like feeling soil underneath my shoes and not floating in the air, having to trust I won't suddenly be dropped. No, you're so light, Taiko. I huffed out a breath before I started twisting my body and jumped out of Kakashi's arms. Not even a second after my feet finally touched the ground I could hear Kakashi whine. Why are you being so mean, Taiko? I rolled my eyes before I could hear a rather large sword fly our direction. While Kakashi screamed for everyone to get down, I simply caught the sword. This one looked rather familiar. Zabuza, you really want to go again? I turned towards the tall missing nin. He stared at me for a bit until his eyes got wide and he bowed slightly. I didn't even recognize you in that getup, Kitsune, and no, I don't want to go against you again. I may be crazy, but I'm not suicidal quite yet. Have a nice day. He took his sword out of my hand, put it back in place and disappeared back into the forest. Well, that was easy. Not letting this keep us longer from our mission, I turned towards the team that was giving me weird and confused looks. I didn't know you knew Zabuza. I shrugged at Kakashi. I don't really know him. We went against each other and one of my team members thought it would be funny to scream their heads off for no reason. So I obviously thought they were in trouble or something. I actually paused my fight to go check if they were fine. Well, after I was back fighting with Zabuza, they no longer were fine. After walking for another hour or so, we finally arrived at the old man's place. I forgot his name. Have I ever been told his name? Well, not that I really care about it. We were welcomed in by this old man's daughter, Tsunami. She seemed like a nice lady but too interested in Kakashi for my taste. His grandson showed up too, but only started screaming some bull about not surviving something and then ran off to go cry. I was just watching all of this play out, passively holding my favorite volume of Icha in my hand. Why don't we go out and relax in the forest? It looked really calm when we walked by. Sure, sounds like a good idea actually. These people are too loud. Tell me about it. I really want to tell that Pinky my mind, but the screaming I would get to hear after probably wouldn't be worth it. Let's just go and let these people to their own devices. They'll be fine for a few hours, right? Yay, they have to. If not, Hitaki is still there with them. No need to worry, Kit. With that short conversation with Kurama, I made my way back to the door. The rest finally sat down to have some tea and talk about the small boy's behavior. I was not about to listen to some lame life story. So I walked out of there without a word. Hours went by with just me sitting in silence with myself and my favorite book. The occasional bird or wind gust reminded me that I was still sitting here alone. Taiko, want to train the others with me? I looked up at the happy voice to come face to face with a certain Junin. Do I want to? No, but I'll watch both of them embarrass themselves. Well, Sakura doesn't have a lot of chakra, so there shouldn't be much she can do wrong. Kakashi gave me his loving closed-eyed smile that made me stand up and follow him to the clearing he was planning on training the genin in. You two will learn how to climb a tree today. Of course, the Banshee had to interrupt. We already know how to do that, sensei. He just gave her an annoyed smile and continued where he left off. Without hands, of course. And again, a Banshee scream was heard. It is very effective. You acquired -10 hearing. Yay, thanks for this nice narration, Kurama. No problem, Kit. Let me explain, Sakura. Kakashi started going off in his teacher's voice, trying to teach these idiots something useful, considering they hadn't actually learned anything at the academy. Here, let me demonstrate. With those words, Kakashi started walking up a tree before he started walking along a branch upside down. When he came to a stop, his shirt fell down a bit considering he wasn't wearing his green Junin vest. His nicely toned stomach was revealed and I could practically hear Sakura blushing. He gave his two genin a closed-eyed smile before his eyes wandered off towards me. A mischievous glint passed through them when he noticed me almost slobbering over his well-formed stomach. He jumped back down and let the two genin do their training while he walked up to me. By now I had pulled my attention back to my Icha book. Not saying a word, Kakashi sat down next to me close enough for me to feel the heat radiating off of him. It was quite comforting sitting here next to him in silence just reading. I did it. Of course, the Banshee had to scream again. Good job, Sakura. Continue to practice a bit. You'll join me with guarding Tazuna tomorrow. Oh, so Tazuna was his name. You'll forget in a matter of minutes again anyway. Why bother? True. Want to go fight something? How can I say no to that? Maybe a friendly spar with your cute lover boy? He is not my lover boy. So you're not denying that he's cute? Rolling my eyes, I ignored the weird sounds Kurama was making and turned towards Kakashi. Kashi, want to spar? To my surprise, Kakashi's eyes lit up and he gave me a simple nod before getting up and putting his book back into his kunai pouch. Rolling my eyes, I ignored the weird sounds Kurama was making and turned towards Kakashi. Kashi, want to spar? To my surprise, Kakashi's eyes lit up and he gave me a simple nod before getting up and putting his book back into his kunai pouch. The two genin continued to try walking up a tree. Sasuke stopped to follow our movements and watched interestedly as we stood opposite to each other. You sure you want to do this, Kakashi? You'll just get hurt again and this time your cute little genin will witness. He simply rolled his eyes at me and elegantly moved into his fighting posture. I won't go down easy, Naru-chan. Embarrassed about the nickname Kakashi had given me many years ago, a slight blush came onto my cheeks. Luckily none of the two genin was in earshot, so neither could hear my real name. Don't call me that in front of them, Kashi. My old teammate simply smiled at me and motioned for me to attack first. I started with simple hand-to-hand combat. Of course, Kakashi simply blocked my poor attempts to hit him. Slowly we started going faster and faster. By now I knew we had gotten blurry to the two genin. Come on Taiko, stop messing around and fight me. With a sly smile, I started making hand signs and I could see the sweat build on Kakashi's forehead as he figured out what jutsu I was about to use. 20 clones of myself appeared and started attacking Kakashi at once. This gave me the time to sneak up behind him, and as he dispelled the last of my clones I grabbed his vest and turned him towards me in a fluid motion. We were now standing with our backs to the genin. I used his shocked stated, reached up and pulled down his beloved mask. Of course, the genin saw that I did this but were unable to actually see their teacher's face. I could hear the two silently cursing as Kakashi slowly looked down at me. He gave me one of his breathtaking smiles and I could just feel the blood rush to my face. Still can't get enough of my face. Well, looking like I do, it's no wonder. With his ego boosted, he pulled his mask back up and patted my head. His pat was different from the pat the Hokage always gave me. His pat was sincere. He actually meant no harm with his pat. This was just the way he expressed his happiness and proudness. Alright, continue training my little genin. Kakashi started walking back to his seat underneath one of the many trees while I was still standing on my spot. My face was still burning up from his smile. A deep chuckle pulled me out of my state. So much for not totally having the hots for your sensei. I do not have the hots for Kakashi. Sure, I'll just ignore this really perverted thought of yours that's literally screaming in my ear. Shut up. With another dark chuckle, Kurama finally shuts up. I really needed to get those thoughts under control or Kurama would drive me crazy with his mad laughs. The genin trained for hours while Kakashi and I sat next to each other reading our books. We were sitting close enough to each other that with every movement Kakashi made one of his limbs would brush my skin and my skin would, of course, erupt in goosebump madness. His touch had way too much control over me for my liking. Finally, Kakashi called his students to call it a night. After both of the two started making their way towards the old man's house, Kakashi turned towards me again. He gave me a smile I rather had not seen today. Slowly he stalked towards me until he was not even a few inches away from my body that was heating up with his presence. "You like what you saw earlier? I mean, I did see you almost slobber all over yourself after seeing my abs." I let out an uncomfortable cough and stepped back to have Kakashi follow me. "What are you talking about, Kakashi? No such thing happened." I tried holding my voice steady to not show him how much his close presence actually affected me. "Oh, it did happen, and not very subtly either. You were all over this fine piece of human." I blocked Kurama from further distracting me. Kakashi simply gave me a smile and pulled down his mask now of his own accord. His lips were rosy and a little mole was sitting on his left cheek. His scar was now partially visible too. His jawline was, of course, perfectly sharp. Kakashi moved even closer to me with his now exposed face and I could feel his breath brush my cheek and neck. "Kakashi, you have only called me by that name when you tried to hide something." "What are you trying to hide, Taiko? Had a dirty thought? Oh God. Dear Jashin, save me. Why did he have to be this hot? Why did I have to be this vulnerable to him? Why is my body heating up?" "Your body wants to mate." "Mate? Yay. You're attracted to Kakashi, so your body, which is partially fox, is reacting accordingly. You couldn't have told me earlier that something like this would happen?" "Nah, where would the fun be in that?" I heard his laugh booming through the sewers that Kurama was still sitting in. My body further heating up was now feeling very uncomfortable and Kakashi was not helping with being this close to me. "I'm not hiding anything, Kakashi. Don't flatter yourself." A tired huff escaped my lips. This mating shit actually took a lot of my energy. I could feel my legs slowly starting to give out. My body just kept getting hotter. My southern region now reacting too. I had to get out of here and that fast. Before Kakashi caught on to anything, but let's be serious for a second. There was no chance in hell that Kakashi hadn't already figured out that something was wrong with me. This dude was simply too clever for his own good. "Naruto?" He spoke slowly and in a very soft tone. His gloved hand made his way towards my cheek that was by now probably the color of a tomato and carefully stroked it. "You're burning up, Naru-chan. Are you alright?" His soft tone of voice seemed to get me into a further predicament and after a few seconds of Kakashi looking me up and down his eyes stopped. Amusement danced through his visible onyx eye and his hand that was still on my cheek now slowly slid down to my neck. "When was the last time you released yourself, Naru-chan? How would I be able to remember the last time I fucking masturbated in a situation like this? I don't fucking remember. It could have been a few days ago or even a few months ago. Why would I remember this right now? It actually was about 6 months ago. After you walked in on Kakashi at the hot springs." "Oh, I remember that. Why do you, though?" "Just making sure my cute little vessel takes care of himself." I shrugged at Kakashi that was still staring down. His hand was slowly glazing over my neck before it started to play with my hair. The occasional pull made me huff and my knees even weaker. "Don't tell me the last time was 6 months ago after our run-in at the hot spring. How the hell did Kakashi know that I did that?" I could hear a deep chuckle and made sure to note down to ask Kurama about this later. Another pull of my hair made my knees finally buckle underneath my weight and Kakashi easily caught me in his arms. My breath was shallow and my mind had now given in to the heat. "Kakashi." I didn't even have enough breath left to say his name in one go. This was extremely bad considering we were in the middle of nowhere with the two genin probably waiting for us somewhere. Kakashi was still looking at me but now I could see his eyes slowly turning darker. He pulled his mask back into place and placed me in his arms bridal style. "I need you to relax, Naru-chan. You'll feel better in no time. I promise." With that, he took off towards the little hut we were staying in. It didn't take us long to reach it. Kakashi smuggled my messed up self into the room we apparently would be sharing and placed silencing seals all over the room before he jumped back out of the window. A few minutes after he walked back into the room. I was still on top of the bed where he had left me. He locked the door before he carefully walked up to me. "I'll take those clothes off you now, Naru-chan." I couldn't even take in his words anymore. His voice was driving me crazy in an awfully good way. So I simply nodded and let him do what he wanted. After he took off everything but my boxer shorts, I was feeling loads better, but that didn't hold on for long. Kakashi took in my state. I was laying on a bed that was a total mess by now. My face was flushed and my breath only coming in short. His eye darkened up again before he walked towards the door and made sure with another seal that no one would be coming inside. After that, he started taking off his headband before he slid down his mask. He was standing next to me when he took off his black shirt, revealing the abs that made me into this mess. I could feel my hard meat twitch in delight as Kakashi started undressing in front of me. Kakashi caught the twitching, and after that, there was no way of stopping him. He practically jumped on top of me before he started kissing me hard. After a bit, it turned into a more sloppy kiss and Kakashi was all over my body by now. I was turning into a moaning mess and it didn't seem to leave Kakashi cold. I could hear him growl, and just like that my boxers were gone. Thrown somewhere across the room. Just like the rest of our clothing. I was like pudding under his touch and Kakashi was completely in control of this situation. He moved his body further down to then make the rest of my sane mind fly out off the window. Kakashi was slowly sucking on my tip as it kept on twitching with every touch. If he continued on like this, I wouldn't be holding off any longer. He was slowly getting me higher and higher when I could feel one of his hands slide further down to my back entrance. It didn't take a genius to figure out what he was about to do, and me being completely helpless wouldn't stop him. His fingers slowly entered me, and while massaging my meat he was stroking my insides. That took me over completely, and not a minute after I finally released everything that had been held inside of me for the past 6 months. Kakashi gave me a mischievous smile while looking into my tired eyes. He was slowly licking off all the sperm that had landed on his hand. "You came so much, Naru-chan. You really should stop not releasing yourself. It's not good for your body, and if you can't without help, I'm always ready to help, my dear Taiko." My eyes were slowly closing and Kakashi gave me a light chuckle. He covered me with the blankets after he slid my boxers back on. He placed another kiss on my lips before he made his way towards the bathroom to probably take a shower and taking care of his own problem. Before I could figure out if my guess was correct, slumber took over and darkness engulfed me. My eyes were slowly closing and Kakashi gave me a light chuckle. He covered me with the blankets after he slid my boxers back on. He placed another kiss on my lips before he made his way towards the bathroom to probably take a shower and taking care of his own problem. Before I could figure out if my guess was correct, slumber took over and darkness engulfed me. It's been a few days since we arrived here in this little town. The old man was now almost finished with his stupid bridge, and there hadn't been any interference from Zabuza or any other high-ranked missing nen. This mission shouldn't be taking up more than another 2 days, and then we should be able to start our journey back to Konoha. We'll be leaving for the bridge now. Keep your mother safe, Inari. The old man seemed really fond of his grandchild, and before we left every day those were the words said. The walk to the bridge wasn't long, but it took a lot longer than it would have to, considering the old man wasn't very fast. Kakashi was like me, walking and at the same time reading his Icha book. The 2 genin were walking in front of the old man and we were behind him. After hours of working on the bridge and only a few more adjustments left, a really annoying voice spoke up. "I can't believe the demon Zabuza just refused to take on you weaklings. Glad I won't have to pay a weakling like him. He was way too expensive anyway." Turning around to see the small man dressed in a suit just made me annoyed. I simply gave him a bored look before I looked up to Kakashi. It was his call as to what we would be doing about this dude and his huge army of weak bandits. "Too scared to say anything, are you?" The small man gave off an ugly laugh before he silenced his army. "Get them. Whoever kills the bridge builder gets a bonus." The men behind him started screaming some weird stuff and I could hear Kakashi sigh behind me. "Sasuke, you take on some of the men. Sakura, stay and protect Tazuna. Kitsune, you go and have fun. I'll take on whoever you two miss." With a nod from me and a quick "HN" from Sasuke, we dashed off right into the big pool of men. Sasuke was testing different jutsus on the men while I was simply slashing at whatever came into my way towards the small man. Blood was flying everywhere and different screams were heard all around the battlefield. One after another dropped dead, covered in his own blood. By the time I reached the small man, I knew I was covered in dark crimson blood. The smell bit my hypersensitive nostrils, and I must have looked like a psychopath covered in blood and smiling like a madman. This small guy was already dripping with sweat, and he smelled like fear and pee. Kitsu. The shout stopped me from simply killing this man in front of me. I looked back towards Kakashi, that was now making his way through the bloodbath towards me. Let me get some information out of him first. You can kill him after, or if he won't cooperate. I gave the silver-haired Jonin a nod and made my way towards the two genin. Sakura had lost consciousness, and I could smell vomit all over Sasuke. Looks like he still wasn't over the bloodbath his brother had made with his clan. The old man was simply looking at me shocked, and I could smell fear on him too. Rolling my eyes, I sat down leaning against the railing and waited for Kakashi to be done with investigating. It took him almost an hour to get whatever he wanted out of this guy, and the blood on my body had started drying and slowly crumbling off. What a bloodbath. Must have been fun. The rough voice from Zabuza echoed over the bridge, and Sasuke was alert as soon as he heard the voice. I simply looked up to the missing nin and gave him a nod. Clean it up, would you? Also, I am officially asking you to protect this village together with Haku. I will visit from time and reward you for your services. Maybe I can even get the Hokage to take you in, so no ninja that comes across you can simply kill you. Zabuza looked at me like I was crazy before he gave me sigh and looked towards the other side of the bridge. You hear, Haku? We'll be staying here under Kitsun's orders. Go and get us someplace to stay. There was nothing heard but a simple swish of wind before Zabuza started making hand signs for some water jutsu that cleaned the blood and bodies right of the bridge. Kitsun, you may now kill this man. I have whatever I need from him. With a simple flick of my hand, the man started choking on his own blood and slowly died. After Kakashi confirmed his death, we simply pushed him into the sea underneath the bridge and left for the old man's house. We'll be leaving tomorrow at a much faster pace, so get some sleep. With Kakashi's orders, the two genin made their way upstairs to their bedrooms, and I made my way towards the bathroom. Finally getting all this dried blood off of my body was bliss, and after my hair was light blonde again and not all bloody, I stepped out of the shower. With a towel wrapped around my midsection, I made my way towards mine and Kakashi's room. I had forgotten to take clothes with me, so now I had to walk almost naked across the hallway. Reaching the room, Kakashi was already laying in bed with his mask down and his nose in his book. He watched me over the edge of his book while I was taking out some clothes from my scroll and putting them on. Are you coming to bed now, or are you going to go out again? Laying down next to Kakashi, he wrapped his arms around my body before he pulled me on top of his chest. I guess that's my answer. Good night, Naru. Night, Kashi. The next morning before the sun was coming up, I was awake and getting ready for our journey that would hopefully only take us 2 days. I could feel Kakashi's eyes on me while I was getting dressed in my Anbu uniform without my mask and set up whatever I would be needing on our way back. Naru, why are you already awake? The two genin won't wake up for another 2 hours. I rolled my eyes and put my katana in place. They will be up in a few minutes and we're leaving in an hour. With that, I walked towards the genin room and opened the door loudly. Sasuke woke up from the bang alone, and after I pushed Sakura of her bed, she was awake too. Get ready. We're leaving in an hour. No complaining. Hurry your slow asses up. Sasuke huffed and got ready while Sakura started complaining about not enough time to get ready. I simply ignored her and made my way downstairs and out of the door. It took us 2 days to get back to Konoha, and the Banshee just kept on complaining about our speed. Finally arriving in Konoha, I took off immediately towards the Hokage tower. I arrived at the old man's office and simply barged into the room. At my arrival, all the Anbu simply left and the Hokage frowned down at me. Will you start knocking? Simply ignoring this old man's outburst, I handed him my report. Anbu Kitsune reporting back on the C-rank escort mission. The brat is back safely and Gato is dead. Zabuza Momoichi is watching the small town and making sure no harm comes to it. With a hum, the old man starts reading my report. I also put the scroll with the 2 demon brothers in it on his desk addressed to Ibiki. Putting my transformation back in place, I start going through the stack of papers that were on the desk. I got through the stack before Team 7 even showed up and was now making the old man sign his papers standing next to him behind his desk. He wasn't too thrilled on actually doing work but simply signed what I told him to. I was rudely interrupted by a knock on the door. Gramps gave me a pointed look that I skillfully ignored and called in whoever just saved him from doing work. Team 7 walked in and Kakashi bowed respectfully while his students simply stared at me standing next to their leader. "Welcome back, you three. How was your trip to the wave?" Not caring a bit about their story, I simply started going through the files in my hand again. Whoever thought paperwork was boring was more than just right, but it definitely topped having to listen to some boring report. I could practically feel Sasuke stare at me with his annoyed gaze. He probably wanted me to be all over their report and be super jealous. Which he now sees I'm not. I honestly couldn't have cared less about them dying in a ditch. Now Naruto was a huge help. Don't even worry about it. He even promised to help me out more with my paperwork. I did what? I sweat dropped at his promise, but didn't interfere with his little delusion. I would get back at him eventually. Gigi, stop getting distracted. These papers had to go out 3 months ago. Now sign them so I can finally get rid of them. With a huff, the old man signed the last few papers that I had still in my hands and I sorted them out for him. Here is your pay for the C-rank mission. You two are dismissed until tomorrow. Report here at 10 a.m. With that, the two genin finally left with their money. As soon as the door closed, my transformation dropped and the rest of the paper landed on the old man's desk with a thud. You should really start doing some actual work. All this paperwork laying around is pathetic. Ignoring your insult. You two hopefully know that in 8 months the Chunin exams will start, and after Naruto refuses to further watch the Uchiha. With this situation at hand, we will have to make sure Sasuke becomes a Chunin. Kakashi, you will focus all of your training around the Uchiha, making him strong in teamwork and in power. Naruto, you will go out and find Tsunade and Jiraiya and bring them back to the village no matter what. Afterwards, you will scope out Orochimaru together with your Anbu team and kill him, his experiments and his accomplices. Destroy whatever he even touched in that wretched hideout. I could feel Kakashi's hand tighten on my waist while we were told our mission for the next 8 months. I wasn't happy having to leave this village just to scope out these old people that were supposed to take care of me. Plus, I had to leave Kakashi behind, but we still both gave our leader a nod. Good. Now, you two will do some D-rank mission together before each of you will start your missions in 2 days. Report back here at 6 a.m. Dismissed. With that, Kakashi and I bowed in respect and left the office. With Kakashi by my side, we walked out of the tower. I didn't bother putting my transformation back up. Kakashi was walking next to me as close as humanly possible. Naruto. The voice of the white-haired Junin was almost silent and laced with fear. I didn't understand what his fear was for, but I simply looked up at him silently, telling him I was listening to him. Will you move in with me? With our new mission, we'll start seeing each other less and I want to be able to spend as much time with you as possible. All through his question he refused to look me in the eyes, and the fence behind me seemed more interesting. The fear was still present in his eye and he seemed very uncomfortable in his situation. I would love to live with you, but are you sure you want to take in the demon brat? Surprised about my words, Kakashi finally looked into my eyes. A small smile started appearing on his face. Don't say that. You're important to me and I want to have you close to me. If you want, we can make sure no one that is not supposed to know about it won't know about it. I was pulled closer to Kakashi and engulfed in his warmth. Let's go and get whatever you have in your apartment and go home. He gave me a big smile and started walking before he noticed that I wasn't moving from my spot. He turned towards me and looked at me questioningly. I have nothing in that apartment left. Let's just go home. With a smile, Kakashi grabbed my hand and pulled me towards his apartment. He happily talked about making space for me in his apartment. On our way home we stopped for some ingredients for dinner. While Kakashi was cooking for us, he went on about what I could move around and what we would need to go out and buy. We ate in peaceful silence, and after we cleaned up we started going through the things that I had still with me. Kakashi started making a list of what I needed. Well, we definitely need to go clothes shopping. You have enough weapons for the next 5 years. We'll just have to see what we can find. With one more look towards Kakashi, I carefully unsealed my parents' belongings. Kashi watched me closely and almost stopped breathing when he set eyes on his old sensei's jacket and his wife's katana. Where did you get these? He carefully picked up my mother's katana and slowly stood up. A few seconds later her katana was hung over the couch in the living room. I gave him a small smile and looked at the jacket of my father. The Namikaze estate. I went there and got a few things before I sealed it back up. Kakashi smiled at me and walked back to me to pull me off of the ground. Let's get some rest. Climbing into his bed and scooching closer towards Kakashi, I let his warmth soothe me into slumber. It's 5 am and I was ready to leave this village. I wanted my quiet Anbu live back, and with Kakashi by my side, it wouldn't get as lonely. Naru, let's go and get some breakfast before we head to the Hokage's office. Kashi's scratchy voice echoed through the apartment, and a second later his tired stature appeared in his bedroom door. Looking up from my Icha book, I gave him a small smile and a nod. His white hair was hanging over his Sharingan eye and his mask lazily hanging from his fingers. Take your time and we'll leave when you're ready. With a small tired grunt, he placed a kiss on top of my head before he disappeared back into the bedroom. After getting some fresh dangos and some tea, we made our way towards the office where the old man was already waiting for us. Walking in without knocking, I was greeted with an old man covert by paperwork that I was now required to finish. With a sigh, I started going through the papers with my transformation back in place. While Naruto is going through my paperwork, why don't we discuss the training regiment you have planned for Sasuke? I ignored the two of them talking about the training for the Uchiha brat and simply went through my stack of work. The only thing I cared about was Sasuke getting strong enough to become a Chunin in a few months. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, I don't think easy training will help Sasuke in any way. Kakashi seemed upset about something the old man had said to him. Do you think the same way, Naruto? Why were they bringing me into this discussion? I do, Gigi. The brat wants to get stronger, then we'll make him stronger, but every good ninja knows it's connected with pain. He will have to live with that. With that, I went back to the papers and ignored the two of them. Kakashi seemed more content with whatever the old man was saying until my name fell. Naruto, I want you to help as Kitsune in Sasuke's training whenever you can. Rolling my eyes, I gave him a nod. Great. Well, I'll be shopping for the next few hours. Want anything specific? With a big smile, I gave him a nod. I want more bookshelves and books that are not written by Jiraiya. Kakashi sighed but gave me a nod. He gave me a soft kiss on the head before he left the office. I was going to simply go back to work, but the old man started talking. What has been going on between you two? I didn't even look up from my stack of paper as I answered his question. Nothing official is going on between us yet. Gramps chuckled, finally making me look up at him. Well, I doubt that it will stay this way for long. I see the way you two look at each other. Covering my uncomfortable state with a cough, I went back to the stack of papers. I heard the old man laugh before he took care of some other things and let me be with my papers. After many hours of papers, Team 7 finally walked in and I could get rid of this horrid paperwork. There was another reason why I did not actually want to become Hokage. Good morning, Team 7. You 4 will be doing D ranks today as your last time until the Chunin exams. Annoyed and not about to actually play Knucklehead Ninja, I stood next to Kakashi, who almost immediately placed his hand on my shoulder, keeping me close to him. Gigi started talking about why we weren't going on any further missions after today and some other stuff as Kakashi looked down towards me. I was able to get you some basics and the 2 bookshelves you wanted. As asked, I got some books that are not written by Jiraiya, and there is still space for you to buy more. You want to cook tonight or go out? I smiled up at him and thought for a second before giving him an answer. Why don't we cook something together? There will be time for us to go out to eat after we finish all this nonsense with the Chunin exams. The white-haired Junin was about to say something as the loud voice of the old man echoed through the room. Will you two stop flirting and listen to me? There will be enough time for you two to do that after I have finished giving you your first mission for the day. Rolling my eyes, I gave him a nod, asking him to hurry it up so he could finally leave. He gave me a huff and threw a scroll at me. All you need to know is in there. Now leave. With a mock bow, I left with the scroll in hand and Kakashi following like a lost puppy. I read through the general information while walking towards the fields. It was a simple chore of pulling out weeds. Seeing as it was scorching hot, I wasn't about to do some shitty work a villager was too lazy to do. I'm not doing this, Kashi. The man looked down from his book and gave me a thoughtful nod. You don't like the heat, do you? Well, I guess you can sit this one out, or you could just make a clone do it. Thinking for a few seconds, I gave him a nod and grabbed another book from Kakashi's kunai pouch. I wasn't sure how he did it, but, at all times, he carried several books with him in his pouch. Not even bothering for the hand seals, a clone popped up as soon as we reached the fields. The two genin didn't even realize that a clone was doing my work instead of me, making it able for me to relax against Kakashi and read a book about some small village in the snow country. It took the genin an hour to finish and we were finally back on our way to the office. The two were sweating heavily from the heat and working in the sun. They looked at me confused as I didn't even seem tired. "Naruto, why aren't you tired from this?" I looked back at the bubblegum monster before I hid the book back inside Kakashi's pouch. "Well, first I have a huge amount of stamina due to my clan heritage. Second, I didn't do anything." Shrugging my shoulders, I slammed the door open to find an angry old man sitting behind his desk. It didn't take 2 seconds for a scroll to be heading my way. Easily catching our next mission, I kept the first scroll to get the money later when Gramps calmed down a bit. The genin seemed confused about this interaction, but neither said anything about it. With a huff, I looked through the scroll and started walking towards the river close to the training grounds for the genin. Arriving, I started taking off my pants, being interrupted by Sakura's scream. "What do you think you're doing, idiot?" I rolled my eyes and continued. "I don't want my pants to get wet. Besides, I have shorts underneath my pants, so it shouldn't be a problem." Showing my point, I threw my pants at Kakashi, who caught them with a smirk on his face. My Kill Me Now orange jacket followed soon after, together with my black mesh shirt. Showing off my black seal of Kurama, I walked into the river slightly shivering as the cold water touched my skin. This was about the only type of chore I was willing to do in this hot weather. Sasuke and Sakura soon after followed and we started fishing out the trash. It wasn't the most pleasant work, but it was nice and cool in the river, so I wasn't about to complain. "Hey, dope, I heard Kakashi say something about some bookshelves he bought for you. What's that all about?" Looking towards Duck Ass, I saw him looking at me intently. "Nothing you have to concern yourself with, Teme. It will in no way harm your training with him." He gave me a nod and continued, but Sakura didn't seem happy about my answer. "Do you two live together?" I gave her a nod before she started talking again. "Since when?" Sighing, I stood up straight and looked towards her. "I moved in with him yesterday. May I know why this concerns you in any type of way?" She opened her mouth wide to scream something when she got interrupted by the deep voice of the man I called mine. "Be nice, Naru-chan. No harm in telling these two about some of your personal life." Rolling my eyes, I gave a nod and looked at Sakura questioningly, waiting for another dumb question. "Why do you live together?" I was about to answer as I got interrupted by the same man, now a lot closer to the three of us. "We're in a relationship, Sakura." She gaped at us, not sure what to say next. Sasuke grumbled something under his breath before he too asked another question. "Since when?" "We got together after the escort mission. Now that we finished this, let's head back to Gigi. Hope you won't chuck another scroll my way." I scratched the back of my head as I got out of the water and started putting my clothes back on. "It's your own fault for just barging in on him like that. He is an old man, Naruto, you'll give him a heart attack one of these days." Kakashi chuckled as we started walking back to the tower. As if he is a trained shinobi. He's not scared that easily. I finally was able to calmly hand Gramps the 2 mission scrolls after we got back. Our last mission was to walk some dog from the Inuzuka compound. I'm not very good with any type of animal besides foxes, so I sat this one out and simply handed Kakashi my leash, seeing as he was used to dogs, considering his summons were dogs. I walked next to Kakashi, ignoring everything around me, simply listening to the sounds around us. The chirping of different birds, the rustling of leaves, and the faraway sound of water splashing around. A few laughs were heard here and there, probably children that were playing outside after finishing school for the day. Nothing could have changed my peaceful state. Nothing but Kurama screaming in my head. "Good morning, Kit. How long have I been out?" Almost toppling over from the loud voice suddenly screaming at me in my head, I stopped walking and breathed deeply to calm my heart. "What the hell, Kura? You scared me to death." I heard his loud laugh boom in my head as I walked back to my team. "Sorry about that, Kit. So about my question, a few days. Nothing major. You have slept longer before." I could hear him huff as an answer before he quieted back down and probably laid back down somewhere in my mind. Reporting back from the last D-rank mission for the day, I was ready to hightail it home and get rid of this hideous jumpsuit. The old man finally dismissed us after, again, explaining what would now happen to our training regimen. Stepping out of the room, I was about to run out when Sakura's voice stopped me in my tracks. Why don't we go and get some barbecue? To just celebrate, considering we won't be seeing each other for a while. Kakashi put his hand on my shoulder to keep me from running and agreed with the bubblegum monster. Sounds like a good idea. I am starving and this way we won't have to cook dinner. Rolling my eyes at Kakashi's laziness, I simply gave the group a nod and let myself be pulled towards the restaurant. After being seated and ordering, Sakura kept on talking about something I didn't quite want to understand. I simply sat next to Kakashi and played with a senbon under the table. Time ticket by way to slow, and half an hour later everyone was finally done eating. Can we leave now? My question was a simple whisper towards Kakashi. He ignored the question and put his hand on my thigh to calm me down for a bit longer. That pink monster kept on rambling about clothes and girls that apparently were way too fake. Oh dear Jashin, please make her shut up. Kurama whined, making my head throb. Calm down, Kura. I'll try to get out of here. I felt Kakashi's grip on my leg indicating that he too was ready to leave this conversation. I cleared my throat to get Pinky to shut up for a few seconds. I really love listening to your talking, Sakura-chan, but I really need to go get a few things for my coming training ready. Sakura gave me an understanding smile and a nod. Oh, it's alright. I should probably do the same. Finally being able to pay, we walked out and said our goodbyes. Sasuke simply walked off and Sakura, being herself, followed him like a lost little puppy. I started making my way towards Kakashi's and my apartment. A few moments Kakashi fell into step with me. When are you going to leave? I shrugged my shoulders at his question. I don't know, probably around 5 a.m. I don't want to be away for longer than needed. He gave me a thoughtful nod and kept quiet for the rest of the way home. It was already getting dark when we finally arrived at our apartment. I was exhausted from dealing with those two genin and ready to leave for a few days to calm my nerves. Kakashi, though, didn't seem as thrilled about the fact that I was leaving the village in a few hours' time. Kakashi, relax. I'll be back before you know it. Just concentrate on Sasuke's training. He gave me a side look and sighed. How will I not notice when I come home to an empty apartment? After getting rid of my equipment and most of my clothes, I walked back towards Kakashi that was sitting on the couch. You worried too much. I promise you that I'll be back as fast as possible. Curling up against his side, he pulled me even closer. I know I do. Maybe Lord Third will let you take another Anbu with you? Snickering at his antics, I pulled his hands to my lips, giving them a quick kiss. Do you really think I won't be able to guilt trip my godparents into coming back by myself? He gave off a breathy laugh and relaxed noticeably. Just be safe. Looking up towards his face, I gave him a soft smile. I always am. With a nod, he pulled me up on his lap and buried his face in the crook of my neck. Playing with his gravity-defying hair, I let him relax against my body. Let's go to bed, Kashi. It's getting late and I'm getting tired. With a grunt, he stood up with me still in his arms. On memory, he walked through his apartment into his bedroom and carefully dropped me on top of his bed. It took several minutes for us to get ready for bed and to get comfortable in each other's arms. I listened to his heartbeat for several minutes before it guided me into a deep slumber. Something softly pulling my hair woke me up several hours later. I looked up with half-lidded eyes and weakly smiled. Morning. A low rumble that sounded like a laugh escaped Kakashi. I'll get breakfast ready while you go and take a shower. With an incoherent mumble, I made my way towards the bathroom and started getting ready for my long trip. It took a good half hour before I was ready to eat something and start on my trip to find my godparents. Opening the bathroom door, the smell of bacon and eggs flew my way, making my stomach growl. Slowly walking into the kitchen, I saw breakfast scattered neatly over the table. Ignoring my hungry stomach for a minute, I made my way towards my lover and snuggled my face into his back. Thank you for the food. Stretching upwards, I gave him a kiss on his exposed cheek and made my way towards the table. Eating in blissful silence, it took us an hour to finish eating and started cleaning the kitchen. It was early in the morning and we weren't awaiting someone to suddenly bang against our door. Looking towards Kakashi, I conjured up my henge and walked to the door that was still being banged against. Getting more annoyed with every bang, I swung open the door and glared at the person standing behind it. What? The black-haired Uchiha looked at me a bit startled before his stoic front came back. I was looking for Kakashi-sensei. Rolling my eyes, I walked back inside, leaving the door open for the brat to come inside. I walked into the kitchen and was met with a clean kitchen and a masked Kakashi reading his Icha book. The brat is here for his training. Kakashi gave me a pointed look making me roll my eyes. Come inside or close the door. Stop standing in front of the open door like an idiot. I could hear Sasuke start scrambling inside and closing the door, grabbing whatever I needed for my journey to find my godparents and walk back into the kitchen. Sasuke was sitting at the table looking a bit uncomfortable to be here and Kakashi across from him. I got everything I need. I'll be back as soon as possible. I gave him a kiss on his masked cheek and looked towards Sasuke. Don't slack on your job, please. He needs the help. Turning Kakashi away from Sasuke's view, I pulled down his mask and stole a kiss. Don't be a brat, Sasuke. This is for your own good. Glaring at the young brat, I gave Kakashi a last smile before I left the two behind in the apartment. Last stop before I could finally leave this village for a while was the old man's office. I jumped in through the window, startling my grandfather half to death. You need to stop doing this. His voice was rather loud, scared his current Anbu guards. I'm just here to say that I am leaving now. Not too sure when I'll be back. Sasuke is already training. With a nod and a wave of his hand, he dismissed me and let me go. The wind was rushing past me and the only thing I could hear was my feet stepping on the branches. It had been a few hours since I had left Konoha and started looking for my godparents. Before I left, I was given several clues about where both of them were staying. Unknown to each of them was that unconsciously they were staying close to each other. Whenever there was a clue about where one was staying, you could be sure you'd have a clue about the other staying only a few towns over. Funny how they always bicker but always stay close to each other. With a smile, I gave Kurama a nod. True, they should just get over themselves and confess their feelings. His deep laugh was rumbling through my head, telling me Kuro was agreeing with me. Now, where exactly are we going? A small town close to Suna and obviously a town on the opposite side of Suna. Kura gave me a low grumble and noticeably went back to sleep. Lazy fox. It made a small smile creep on my face. Times like this made me just realize how much of a blessing Kurama had been to my life. While he was not innocent, neither was I. We both killed, we both were abused for something we had no control over, and we were both lonely beings. Kurama practically raised me to get where I was now, and I was happy. I was happy with the people I had around me. I was happy with Kakashi being by my side. I was happy with my status of Anbu. The only thing I wasn't happy with was the village I had to stay in. I wanted to leave. I wanted to burn that damned village down, but I didn't. I held myself back from running away. I held myself back from attacking the vicious villagers. I did all this for Gramps. I did all this for Kakashi. I did all this for the loved ones that I have in that village. Watching the scenery change from luscious trees to sandy dunes, I slowed down to orient myself. It took another hour to find the first village. The sandy buildings were small and there didn't seem to be a lot of things in this town beside a casino. It didn't take long for a loud voice to start laughing and screaming. The voice was so slurred it was hard to make out what it was babbling about. Even with her slurring, I knew just who I was dealing with. Sighing, I walked towards the entrance and looked out for the blonde female I was looking for. It didn't take long for me to spy the busty Sanin that was again losing one of her many bets. Making my way through the many people standing around and googling at the situation, I started snickering, making myself known to my godmother. I don't even know why you are still making bets. We both know there is no chance in hell you will win. My voice was calm and almost non-existent in this loud crowd of people. Even though, she looked my way and sobered up almost immediately. What's a Konoha Anbu doing all the way out here? I bowed slightly at her. That, I believe, is something we should discuss in a more private setting. She gave me a once-over and then a second later a nod. Slowly she stood up. I could see her apprentice rushing to her side with a small pig in her arms. The black-haired ninja looked at me suspiciously but followed after her sensei. It took us a few minutes to arrive at Tsunade's hotel room. The tension rose as soon as Shizune closed the door behind me. Tsunade sat herself down on one of the cushions on the floor, simply looking at me, waiting. Now, who are you and what do you want? Sitting myself down across from her, I gave her a sigh and let my shoulders slump. Sad how you don't even recognize the child you were supposed to care of, but who would recognize someone they never even seen. Taking off my Anbu mask, I looked her straight in the face, shocking her. Her movements froze and her apprentice looked between us, confused. Naruto? Her voice was almost silent, but with my keen senses, there was no way I would miss it. That would be me, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, heir to the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan. How have you been, dearest godmother? I gave her a sickly sweet smile, making her gulp audibly. Now, why I'm here is simple. You need to come back to Konoha and take over for Gramps until someone else is old enough or ready to take his place permanently. Her green eyes stared at me for a moment before she started shaking her head violently. No. I told Sensei many times that I don't want to return to that village after all I have been through. Rolling my eyes at her antics, I even let out a loud sigh. You are behaving like a child, Tsunade. I really could care less about what stupid thing happened to you, considering that because of your stupid behavior I was tortured daily for 15 years. My voice was calm and I was trying my best to not let my voice quiver at the memories. Her face was starting to pale by the thought of disappointing my parents and hurting me in the process. But that is not why I am here. I long lost interest in whatever your reason was to leave me in that hell hole. I'm here today to get you to go back to help us keep Konoha safe. Tears seemed to gather in her eyes, and for a second I could feel my throat knotting up too. I covered my feelings back up and waited for her answer. Tsunade gave me once over and her emotions seemed to overwhelm her before she gave me a slow nod. I'll leave right away. I suspect you'll be getting my male teammate too? With a nod, I stood back up with my fox mask in hand. Of course, Gramps wants both of you back where you were supposed to be. She was caught in her own thoughts for a few minutes before she looked up to me. What about Orochimaru? Putting my mask back on to cover my face, I was making my way out of the room. I'll be taking care of him with a few of my best available Anbu. No need for you to worry about him. If you'll excuse me. With those words, I jumped out of her window and started making my way towards Suna, where I'll be spending my night today. It only took an hour to get to the gates of the hidden sand village and a few more minutes to get through the security and into my hotel room. Tomorrow I would pay my respects to the case cage and get that old pervert to make his way towards Konoha. After that, I could go back home and spend a few days with Kakashi before I had to leave for my mission to kill Orochimaru. Hopefully, it wouldn't take too long and I could be back at Kakashi's side in a few days. But for now, it was time to sleep. It was around 5 in the morning when I stood up and started getting ready. After I got myself something for breakfast, I was making my way through Suna towards the Kazagaki building. The streets were still waking up and only a few shinobi were rushing over the rooftops. It took only a few minutes for me to reach the Kazagaki's office door and knock. His cold and rough voice ringed out to me and told me to come in. Bowing down, I waited for him to say something. Good seeing you again, Kitsune. I hope to be seeing you at the Chunin exams. Nodding and standing up, I looked at the man in his 40s. You won't be seeing me, but I will be there. Giving me a nod, he handed me scroll. Bring this back to your Hokage. Bowing again, I left without another word to him. Sprinting through the sand dunes, I could feel the sun blazing down on me. Thoughts about the future were running through my mind while I was trying my best not to slip on the sand. I wonder what Kakashi was doing right now. Was he thinking about me? Had he even given me a single thought since I left? I should stop thinking about this. I had a job to finish and then I could think about whatever I wanted to, but right now I had to stay focused on my goal. I had to finish this mission and get back home. It took a few hours of me running through the hot, dry air to reach the wanted town. It was deafeningly quiet. Strange. No one was out on the street. No one could be heard shuffling through their homes. No one seemed to be there until one loud female scream echoed through the town. Pervert. Found him. Running towards the many shouts, it didn't take me long to spot the old white-haired pervert I called my godfather. He seemed to be running around in circles trying to avoid the shoes and thrash that was being thrown his way. Simply watching while he was running, I waited for the crowd to calm down and scatter again. They really did a number on you, Pervy Sanin. Hope you can still walk to Konoha with me. Jiraiya was looking at my fox mask, a bit confused for a few moments until his eyes lit up and I was engulfed by two bulky arms. Naruto, my boy, how are you doing, and didn't I tell you not to call me that anymore? His arms slowly let go of me and looked me over. You've grown. I gave him an annoyed sigh and a nod. Whatever you say. Now let's get to business. Gigi wants you back in Konoha for a few months. It's important. He watched me carefully and shook his head. Don't tell me the old man still wants me to become the next Hokage. I gave him a once-over and shook my head. Don't worry. Tsunade is coming back for that job. You need to be there during the Chunin exams. Orochimaru has been spotted and we need all the help we can get. He looked at me a bit confused but still gave me a small nod. His eyes searched the streets and sighed. Let's go to my room for a bit. I had to get my stuff and you need to tell me everything that has happened since I have left a year ago. Rolling my eyes a bit annoyed at my godfather but gave in and started spilling the goods. We talked until he finally packed all his things and we could finally start making our way back to Konoha. He listened to my story carefully and took everything in that I said. It took him a few minutes until he worked everything over in his head and suddenly stopped in his tracks. You're seeing Kakashi? That Hitaki boy? I gave him a careful nod, not sure about how he would react to the news that I was dating someone at the age of 15 soon to be 16. Considering Kashi was a good amount of years older than me. I'm glad you found someone you can trust enough to live with. Hell, you even refused to live with me while I stayed in the village. I gave him a happy nod, glad he wasn't mad that I hadn't told him in the daily letter he got from me. We were traveling at a fast pace and soon got back into the land of fire. Surrounded with trees, we allowed ourselves to rest for a bit. So, Tsunade will become Hokage. Wasn't that your dream? I thought for a moment. It was true. When I was younger I wanted to become the next great Hokage just like my dad the fourth had been, but by now I gave up on this dream. The village had to like me to make me their leader, and as of right now they hated me with a passion. So, I shook my head. Not anymore. I am even thinking of leaving for a bit with you to train and get away for a while. Calm down and learn about the world I live in. If you're okay with it. His face brightened up at my words and he started smiling. I would love to travel with you and teach you whatever you have left to learn. I know it isn't much that I can teach you in fighting, but I believe I will be able to help with changing your view on this world. I was glad he agreed so easily to it. After our conversation, we started up again and soon the gates of Konoha came into view. They were huge and red, visible from miles away. Slipping my fox mask back on, I walked inside towards the gate guards, Azumo and Katetsu, together with Jiraiya. Kitsune-sama, glad to have you back after so many days. The two smiled at me and I gave them a simple nod. Jiraiya petted my head and smiled. Alright, you can leave now. I think I can find my way towards the old man's office without a babysitter. Bowing in respect towards Jiraiya, I leapt up the roofs and ran towards my shared apartment. It was late afternoon, so Kashi should still be training with Sasuke, but to make sure I wouldn't look for him in vain at the training grounds. I arrived at a dark apartment and an empty bed. Sighing, I started my journey towards the training ground Kashi said he would be training with Sasuke at. Arriving at the ground, I could already hear Sasuke pant and Kashi snicker at something. Putting my henge back up, I walked out of my hiding spot and tackled Kakashi to the floor. With a grunt, he went down but just wrapped his arms around me when he saw who was laying on top of him. I'm back. I hugged me even closer and gave a grunt to let me know that he was happy that I was back. Sasuke had stopped doing whatever he did and watched us a bit confused and uncomfortable. With me still in his arms, Kakashi stood up and walked back towards his student. Why don't we wrap it up for tonight and get some food? Sasuke seemed not too amused about this, considering he wanted to get stronger. But I need to train to win in a few months. Rolling my eyes, I didn't say anything and waited for Kakashi to tell him what would happen tomorrow. I understand, but you need to get some rest now. Kitsune will join us tomorrow and don't even think his training will be half as easygoing as mine has been. Sasuke's face went pale and he seemed to feel dread about something, but I wasn't very interested in what that was about. The next few days were spent with me torturing Sasuke through training and getting my Anbu team ready for Orochimaru. I had to admit I was a bit scared to go against someone this strong. While I had no respect for this monster whatsoever, I had to admit he was strong. Even in his weakened state. Kakashi didn't seem too thrilled about my upcoming mission either. We both knew this time I would be gone longer than a few days. This mission would take more than a week. My team and I had to find Orochimaru, kill him and all his henchmen. After that, we would have to search for all his hideouts and kill whoever was still left in those places and destroy whatever was there. That's enough for today. I have a mission to go on tomorrow, so I will be gone and leaving training to Kakashi again during that time. Slack off during that time, and the day I get back you will feel what real pain is. Sasuke shivered at the simple thought of what I could do to him after I was back, but I could feel the relief rolling off of him that I would be gone for a bit. He started on his way home slowly, trying his best not to strain his muscles any more than he needed to. Kakashi was giving me a concerned look that I waved off. When I come back it will be only a few weeks left before I turn 16. What am I getting? I smiled at the white-haired Junin, wanting to know the answer. You'll have to get back in one piece if you want to know that. I won't just simply tell you what your present is going to be. He ruffled my hair and started walking home with me by his side. I felt at peace next to Kakashi. He gave me the freedom that I needed to not feel smothered, but never made me even think he could be having doubts about anything. It hasn't been long since we got together, which is still not official, but I didn't want to live without him anymore. I was having doubts about leaving for a few years to go out and see the world on my own. Would he wait for me? What if he got together with someone else during those years? There were more than just a few shinobi, female and male, interested in making him theirs. These thoughts scared me even more than having to fight Orochimaru. The day went by with Kakashi and me simply talking about different things. Mostly about how he would renovate during the time I would be gone this time. We went to bed together. I curled up to his side enjoying the heat that was radiating off of him. I would miss him, not only during my time fighting Orochimaru but also during the time I would spend away from this village. But it would be for the best. I had to take some time away from this village. It was for the best of me and this village. The morning came too fast for my liking, but I got up either way. Kakashi had already stood up and I could smell the bacon and eggs through the bedroom door. After eating together and him watching me get ready for my mission, he gave me a deep kiss. Please be careful and come back safely. I don't want to hear anything about you even getting a scratch on yourself. I gave him a smile and a nod, and with a wave of my hand, I was gone in a swirl of black fire. My team was already waiting for me at the front gate. The old man was standing next to them giving me a smile. Please be careful. Orochimaru or any of his henchmen shouldn't be underestimated. By the time you will be back, Tsunade should be inducted into the Hokage position, so this is my last order to you 5. Come back alive. With a deep bow from all of us, we left the village in a hurry. There was no way any of us wanted to disobey our last order. It took us a few hours to reach the hideout Orochimaru was said to be. There were hideous-looking things standing watch outside the entrance. My 4 teammates looked at me a bit confused about the looks of our opponents, but I gave them a shrug and motioned them to wait in the bushes hidden. We were specialized on silent infiltration and elimination. This should hopefully go without any mishaps. My steps were silent, my scent covered and my chakra completely hidden as I sneaked my way towards the 2 guards. I threw a stone to distract the 2 things, and as they were checking out the noise I took out the one that was in the back, and not a second later the other one was dead in my arms too. We slipped in unnoticed and walked through the dark and in dirt-covered corridors. Guards popped up every now and then, but we simply killed them and sealed them away to not let anyone find their bodies. The chakra signatures were going down, and soon all I could sense were 2 strong chakra beings. Slowly and carefully we walked towards the door that conveniently was left open just a crack. Why would they all of a sudden call both of my old teammates back to Konoha? They couldn't know about my upcoming attack during the Chunin exams, so why? The raspy voice that definitely belonged to Orochimaru seemed annoyed and was talking rather loudly to the other person in the room. I am not sure, Lord Orochimaru, but this only means that we'll have to be even more careful about infiltrating. This was all I had to hear. I didn't really care if they wanted to harm Konoha or anyone in that wretched village, but now it would endanger Kakashi, Gigi and both of my godparents, so I was going to stop him right now. Motioning my team to move, I followed their example and started melting into the shadows with them. Before any of the 2 could realize what was going on, the younger one with white hair was falling over dead. Mere seconds later he caught fire and his body was destroyed completely. Surprised Orochimaru looked around, catching my eyes in a dark corner of the room. You, who are you? He didn't seem too happy about us killing his little puppet. I am only here to end you. He lashed out and started attacking the shadow that I was hiding in. A few scratches later his body was so damaged that he shed his fucking skin like a snake. Annoyed, I stepped out of the shadow and started attacking him head on. Blow after blow was dealt, and neither he nor I was holding back any longer. The walls were shaking with every punch that was landed, and with every jutsu that was cast more of the wall started to crumble. Both of us weren't looking good, but I could feel his chakras slowly running out while mine was getting boosted more and more thanks to Kurama. Give up. There is nowhere to run to. I was getting annoyed by this fight. It was long and getting very tiring and boring. Even after my bantering, he kept doing jutsu after jutsu, so I just let him tire himself out, and after a few more serious blows to my body he was heaving for air. He started babbling about being able to make me even stronger than I already was and being able to see the hatred in my heart. While I knew that there was a lot of hatred in my heart, I also knew that now, there was enough love in it too to keep me from taking up such a stupid over. I let him rant a bit more before I rammed one of my katana into his heart. His eyes dulled and he released his last breath, looking at me intently before slumping onto the floor. Sighing in relief, I set his body on fire and watched him burn to nothing but ashes. This should keep him from harming the people I care about. With a nod from me, we set out to destroy what was left in this hideout, and with a map we had found we started making our way towards the other hideouts. It took us a good week to finally be done and destroy the last hideout. I now was ready to go back home and just curl up in Kakashi's arms. Packed with new information and different inventions we thought could be useful, we started making our way back towards Konoha. The mood was tense and I knew every one of us was ready to get back to their loved ones. It took us 2 days to travel back home, but after our long journey, the sight of the big red gates made everyone speed up one last time. We practically stumbled through the gate, getting welcomed by a smiling pair of guards. "You guys look like hell. Glad you made it back safely though." With an appreciated nod, I turned to my team. "You guys go home and relax. I am proud of all of you to get through this mission, and I'll be sure to get you at least a month off." The 4 Anbu gave me tired nods before they went their ways to get home as fast as they could. I made my way through Konoha, still in my uniform and a bit battered from our many fights. We had hardly slept throughout the week, and on our way back everyone refused to take a break and get some rest. In my state, it took me a bit to climb the Hokage Tower and walk through the doors of the Hokage office, only to be met with an angry Tsunade and an uncomfortable-looking Kakashi. At my entrance, both of them stopped talking. With a wave of my hand, the Anbu in the room disappeared to the surprise of Tsunade. Kakashi stared at my weakened form for a few minutes before his beloved Uchiha fell to the floor, and I found myself crushed between his arms. Not even noticing the completely stunned Tsunade, he took off my fox mask and his own black one to give me a passionate kiss on the lips. I melted into his touch until Tsunade coughed, a bit uncomfortable with the situation at hand. Kashi pulled away from me, returning his mask to its place and letting me step up to the new Hokage. Reporting back on Team 1's mission to eliminate Orochimaru. We were successful in killing Orochimaru and every one of his henchmen. All his hideouts were destroyed as ordered. My team has already gone home to clean up and take some time off after our 2-week-long mission. Kakashi took my side and handed me back my fox mask that I took into my hands but refused to put it back on. Tsunade gave me a nod and took the scrolls that I was handing her. We took a few of the henchmen with us to show you the experiments he had been doing. Maybe you can find something from them. With a bow, I was ready to be dismissed and go to my hopefully completely renovated home. I will look through these scrolls. Until then you are dismissed and allowed to do whatever the old man told you to do after you got back. Turning around, I put my mask back on and waited for Kakashi to walk with me. He bowed to Tsunade and followed me out onto the street. Our walk back home was silent, but Kakashi walked as close as humanly possible to me, not letting his gaze stray from my tired form. Finally getting to the apartment, I was stunned to see a completely renovated kitchen that still sparkled. Tired but intrigued, I made my way through the apartment to find it completely cleaned and with new furniture. There were different things laying around or hung up that belonged to me or him. It finally looked like a couple was living in here and not just chaos. He even went ahead and framed my father's cape and hung it next to his personal kunai and my mother's katana. There even were pictures from the two of them with him, and one big one where he was holding me as a baby and my parents standing behind him smiling. My personal favorite was the picture of the two of us that we had taken in the land of waves. In the background, there was the glistering ocean. With a smile and maybe even a few tears in my eyes, I turned to Kakashi that was impatiently waiting for my reaction. I hugged him and buried my face in the crook of his neck. "It looks perfect, Kakashi. I can't believe you did all this in only 2 weeks. He tightened his grip on me. I had a bit of help from Sasuke. It was training for him to carry in all these heavy things and made things a lot easier for me. I walked into the bedroom, finding a bigger and completely new bed where the old one stood and a closet double the size of the one he had previously. Opening it, I found clothes in his and my size. You went and bought me clothes. He gave me a nervous nod. Yeah, we never got around to doing it, so I went ahead and did it while you were gone. I hope you don't mind. I shook my head and smiled at him. No, it's all good. I like them, but where did you hide all our books? Kakashi smiled at me, relieved, and motioned me to follow him. He opened the door to the former guest bedroom that he had transformed into a small library. It was already stocked with many books. Loving the new apartment, I gave him another hug and looked down at myself. This apartment looks amazing, Kakashi, but I should go wash up now. A nap would be nice too. He gave me a nod and let me go into the bathroom that had a new paint job and a big new bathtub. This apartment looks amazing, Kakashi, but I should go wash up now. A nap would be nice too. He gave me a nod and let me go into the bathroom that had a new paint job and a big new bathtub. A nap later, I was ready to walk around Konoha and maybe even get some ramen. Do you have training today with Sasuke? Kakashi, that was pulling up his mask and getting ready to leave our apartment, gave me a nod. Yeah, I'm meeting up with him in a few minutes. Want to join, or are you going to visit Lord Third? I gave him a smile and a kiss on his masked cheek. I had to stand on my toes considering Kakashi was still a few inches taller than me, though I had almost reached his height. I'll go visit Gigi first and report to him. I'll join you too after. Don't tell Sasuke about my return. With a smile, I left the apartment towards the Sarutobi mansion, that was located a bit outside of the busy village. Gigi was sitting in his kimono doing some calligraphy when I finally arrived. I'm home, Gigi. Giving him a big smile, I sat down next to him, watching him place down his paintbrush. I am glad you made it back unharmed. How was your mission? I gave him a quick rundown about what happened and what we found, and he gave me a proud smile. Good job. As always. Only a few more weeks left before the Chunin exams. Are you leaving afterwards with Jiraiya? Sighing, I laid down on the tatami mat I was formerly sitting on and observed the ceiling above us. I was planning to, but I don't want to leave Kakashi here for so long. The old man gave me an understanding nod and a small smile as he started his calligraphy back up. Understandable, but don't you think Kakashi would be happy for you? Leaving the village for a while would be benefiting for your mental health. He knows that as much as you do. Why don't you just talk it over with him in peace? Rolling over to my side, I gave Gigi a look. Do you honestly think I haven't tried? It's not that easy to tell the one person that has finally accepted you that you are leaving for several years at a time. What if he finds someone better than me? Letting myself flop back on my back, I covered my face with my hands, releasing a heavy sigh. Talk to him, Naruto. He'll understand, I promise. If not, you can always rat him out to me or Jiraiya or even Tsunade. Neither of us would let him do anything that could hurt you in any kind of way. Peeking through my fingers, I could see the old man smile at me. Dropping my hands and sitting up, I gave him a careful nod. I guess you are right. I am always right, young one. He gave me a boyish grin as I stood up to leave. Rolling my eyes with a smile on my face, I made my way towards the door. Whatever you say, old geezer. See you around. With that, I left towards the training grounds. Sasuke was already running his warm-up rounds, not noticing me walk into the training ground. Kakashi gave me an eye smile as he spotted me. Naru-chan, how was your talk with Lord Third? Thinking back to my conversation with the old man, I gave him a shrug. Alright, I guess. There is something we have to talk about later. It's important. Kashi looked at me a bit worried but still gave me a nod, assuring me that we would talk when we got home. I tortured Sasuke for several hours with some training, and after I got bored with him, I sent him off for the day. It was getting late and Kakashi was walking up to me a bit hesitant. What did you want to talk about? He sounded worried, probably thinking about several different things I would want to tell him. I didn't want to hurt him by saying I would leave again for a few years. Well, I was thinking about this for a pretty long time now. I didn't, and I still don't really know how to tell you, but I have decided to leave the village with Jiraiya for a few years. Kashi looked at me a bit stunned, apparently not expecting these words to come out of my mouth. Thank God, I thought you were breaking up with me. He gave a tired laugh and went back to his thoughts for another few minutes. What's a few years? I shrugged my shoulders honestly. I was thinking 3 years, but you never know what happens. Nodding, Kakashi sat down on a stone bench that wasn't too far from where we were standing. Alright, when would you be leaving? Wanting to sit down next to him, I started moving but instead ended up on his lap, turned towards him. After the Chunin exams. I will be participating until the second round is over. Afterwards I will be doing guard duty as an Anbu. Joining the Hokage until the end of the last round. Burying his face in my neck he sighed. Alright, promise to keep in touch. Snuggling closer I agreed, already with a plan in mind to send him letters daily on what I saw and what I learned. Weeks came and went. Sasuke was being tortured by me almost daily. With his Sharingan now activated and actively trained, he had an ace up his sleeve. While we trained his Sharingan, I mostly had focused on his other attributes to make sure he wouldn't rely on those oh-so-special eyes of his. He had gotten strong. I knew he could with the right guidance and training. Whenever even the word of Avenger or anywhere close to even hinting at hunting down his brother were mentioned, little man got a good beat down. No way I was letting the last Uchiha leave this rotten village. Sasuke was ready for the exams. I had trained him to mid-chunin with watered-down Anbu training. Of course, I couldn't beat the ego out of him, so now he was bragging about all this strength he had gained. I am so going to be able to beat Naruto easily with all this new strength. Now he will finally shut up and see me as a superior ninja. Rolling my eyes at that, I turned away from the raven-haired boy. There was no chance in hell I was ever looking at this brat as anything else than a brat. Sure, whatever you say, brat. Anyway, the exams start tomorrow. You will be polite to everyone you meet and make sure to keep your team safe. No rushing into battles that you are not sure you could win. No fighting with other Leaf Ninja as long it's not part of the exams. Stay humble and be thankful for your training. Not many genin get this kind of special treatment. He sighed but still gave me a nod after a few minutes. If I find out you were being a little brat, and trust me I will. There will be one hell of a training session after the second exam. My eyes flashed with killing intent and I saw him shudder in fear. Happy with my threat, I turned and started to leave. Don't be later. Exam starts at 8 sharp. With that, I was gone in black flames. Don't be later. Exam starts at 8 sharp. With that, I was gone in black flames. Finally home, I was greeted with a shirtless Kakashi standing in the middle of nowhere reading some Icha. He was staring concentrated down at the small book in his hand, slightly biting down on his thumb. I watched for several minutes with amusement until I decided to make myself known by releasing the slightest bit of chakra. His head instantly went towards my direction and his eyes zeroed in on me. Less than a second later his face broke into a bright smile and the book was put to the side. Welcome home, Naru. How was training? Kashi started walking closer, giving me a peck on the hairline to welcome me. Fine. Brat still thinks he is so much better than little old me. I rolled my eyes seeing Kakashi snicker at my words. Relax, after the first 2 parts of the exam he won't be so disrespectful to you anymore. Nodding, I started taking my clothes off and slipping into some comfortable pants. I sure do hope so, or else I will rip that little bitch from his status and title faster than he can say Itachi. Kakashi started snickering and handed me the book I was currently reading. Let's relax a bit and then go out and grab a bite to eat before we go to bed. I have a feeling it's going to be a long day tomorrow. Approving his idea, I sat myself down on our sofa and Kakashi followed, laying his head down on my thighs. An hour went by with just us two reading when we were interrupted by a knock. With a sigh, I stood up and while walking towards the door I put my henge back into place. Still shirtless and fully showing off Kurama's seal, as there was no other seal visible anymore. Book in hand, I opened the door to Bubblegum Monster. Sakura-chan, can I help you? She looked me up and down in her timid stance, turning redder with every second before she shook her head. Still red, she cleared her throat. I was actually looking for S-sensei. Hearing this talk about him, Kakashi appeared behind me, also shirtless but with a mask on, leaning against the doorframe. What can I help you with, Sakura? Seeing her sensei shirtless didn't seem to improve her state of embarrassment. The poor girl was stumbling all over her words. Can't really blame her, seeing as she is very inexperienced with boys and Kakashi is one fine specimen. Kakashi, that was still reading, of course, didn't notice, so I step aside a bit. Why don't you come inside first and Kashi will go ahead and get us some shirts. Not even questioning my reasons, Kakashi went into the bedroom and got us some shirts. Mine was a bit large, seeing as there weren't bought to be worn in this henge. I had started making some tea in the meantime and Sakura sat herself down at the table we had standing around in our kitchen. After both Kakashi and I had put our shirts on and everybody had their tea, Sakura started to calm down. I just came by to talk a bit about the exams. I don't know, I guess I am a bit nervous about them. I wanted to ask if you could maybe give me some pointers, as you have already taken them. Kakashi gave her a careful look. There is nothing to be nervous about. While I am not allowed to reveal any of the parts of the exam, I can give you a few tips. First, don't go off and start picking fights. No matter with whom, our village, other villages, just keep your temper in check. Second, don't ever show fear. You are a ninja and are supposed to be an emotionless and quiet warrior. Not a loudmouth know-it-all Sasuke-obsessed little girl. Third, don't give away all of your tricks. Always keep something up your sleeve to surprise your enemies. This could possibly change the situation from you dying into them dying instead. Nodding her head vigorously, Sakura was glued to his lips, taking his every word into her soul. It was kind of adorable to see the two of them. Finishing my tea, I stood up and laid it into the sink to be cleaned later. Interrupting their little lesson, I announced that I would be leaving the room. I'll go take a shower real quick. How about you join us for dinner, Sakura-chan? The girl looked at me a bit startled but gave me a careful nod. If I'm not intruding in anything, I would love to stay for dinner. I gave her a smile and turned to Kakashi. Wonderful, Kakashi will be cooking. Kashi looked at me surprised, but before he could say anything I gave him a kiss on his masked cheek and made my way towards the bathroom. After a nice hot shower, I came back into the kitchen to find them having a friendly conversation about something and cutting vegetables. Dinner wasn't as screechy as I had thought. I even enjoyed myself a little in Sakura's presence. It was slowly getting dark out and Sakura was getting ready to leave. Are you sure you don't want Kakashi to walk you home? It has gotten quite late and you can never trust those drunks. She gave me a smile and a nod before she opened the door. Yes, it's fine. Thank you for dinner and the tips. See you guys tomorrow. With that, she closed the door and it was time for Kakashi and me to head to bed. Finally out of my henge, I scratched the back of my neck. So much for going to bed early. Hugging me from behind, Kakashi gave me a kiss on the cheek. Don't be so grumpy about it. You enjoyed yourself as much as Sakura did. Now come on, I'm really tired. The night went by quietly and I woke up with sun rays raping my face. Groaning, I rolled over, angry that none of us had closed those damn blinds. A snicker next to me made me finally crack open one of my eyelids. Good morning, sunshine. With another groan, I buried my face in Kakashi's chest, tangling my arms and legs around his body like a snake. Laughing, Kakashi gave me a kiss on top of my head. I get that you don't want to stand up, but it's almost time for exams and we can't be late. Tightening my grip, I felt Kakashi scooting off the bed and standing up. I could easily hold myself up without his help, so he just left me where I was and headed towards the bathroom. After a warm wake-up shower together, I still wasn't ready to go through those exams. The old man had given me special exams that I could take on my own and no one would sabotage. They were easy, but these I didn't even want to pass to get to the second stage. Dressed again in that ugly-ass suit and henge, I was ready to head out for the day. Kakashi gave me the last kiss before he pulled up his mask and teleported us in front of the academy. He left quickly in a swirl of leaves and I made my way towards Sakura and Sasuke that were already waiting for me. Almost thought you were chickening out, dope. Rolling my eyes, I puffed out my cheeks. It's Kakashi's fault. Do you know how long he takes in the bathroom? I sighed, annoyed. Complete lie. Kashi needed like 4 minutes in the morning to get ready, as do I, but the shower went on longer than expected. Having finished that conversation, we walked inside and I blocked everything around me out. It was time to wake that damned fox. Kura, wake your old ass up before I come in and skin you. Yay, yay. I'm up. Why so cold, Kit? Just not in the mood for this bull. There are better missions to get done, but only a few more days and we're back to assassination mission. Can't wait, but why the hell did you wake me up for this? Because you will be suffering with me through this boring ass exam. You child are the devil. Snickering, I looked around me. Sasuke seemed to be in an argument with a Leaf Genin. That must be Lee, Guy's student. They look exactly the same. It's kind of creepy. Watching the brat closely, I made sure he didn't start fighting. I did threaten him about it. I can't. Sasuke was, as always, way too cool to be in this situation, but he didn't know Lee was just like his sensei and would not falter that easily. Why won't you fight me? Lee's voice was quite loud and brought in the attention of his teammates. Do you think you are too good to fight me? I will show you the spirit of youth right here. Rolling my eyes, I watched as Lee got into his fighting stance. I am not fighting a fellow leaf ninja before the exams start. Good answer, brat. Now it's time to move on. Guys, exams start in 3 minutes and we aren't even on the right floor. Sakura's loud voice was what got their attention back to reality, and Lee realizes that this wasn't the time. Well, then we shall postpone this fight for later. With that, he went after his team and we could finally finish climbing these stairs. Why am I watching this? Because I am the devil itself. Jashin, this is boring. Having Kurama's groaning in the back of my head, I looked around the exam room. There were no grass ninjas in the room, seeing as we killed off that little excuse of a village, but there were still many different shinobi that were glaring at us and letting out killing intent. It wasn't much, seeing as everyone in this room is a genin, but Sakura faltered a bit after she entered the room. Having Kurama's groaning in the back of my head, I looked around the exam room. There were no grass ninjas in the room, seeing as we killed off that little excuse of a village, but there were still many different shinobi that were glaring at us and letting out killing intent. It wasn't much, seeing as everyone in this room is a genin, but Sakura faltered a bit after she entered the room. Please let this be over fast. The tension in the room was intense and I could hear Sakura gulp quietly behind me. Dagger-like glares were sent our way as we walked further into the room. Completely oblivious to the tension, Ino came running towards us screaming, "Sasuke-kun, I missed you." She glomped. The Uchiha brat ad waited for Sakura to scream back at her. To everyone's surprise, Sakura stayed quiet and inched closer towards me. "I don't like their looks, Naruto." Her voice was timid and quiet as her hand clutched to the back of my jacket. Her green eyes were flitting around the room trying to find an escape route. Not looking at her, I took a taller stance, hiding her a bit more behind my body. "Remember what Kakashi told you yesterday. Don't let them see your fear. Try to calm down." Her grip tightened as she did her best, taking in calming breaths. It took her a few minutes until she was calm enough to let go of my jacket, but she still stayed halfway hidden behind me. "I guess Pinky subconsciously knows you can protect her. I guess." Turning my attention back at the other rookie genin, I noticed that both Sakura, that was still behind me, and Sasuke wasn't really taking part in the loud conversations. They both were quietly observing their surroundings, making sure no one could sneak up on them. Guess constantly bantering them did have an impact. After the other Konoha genin had everyone in the room annoyed, Ibiki finally showed up. "Shut up and sit down, brats. Time for your first exam. I hate you for making me watch all this. Love you, too." Ibiki babbled a while about the rules until we could finally start our written test. The questions were tough. Not even most of the Junin I know could answer these. I wrote down some bull that didn't make any sense before I looked around. Sakura was writing down answers easily. While she was annoying most of the time, you had to admit her brain was pretty amazing. Sasuke was using his Sharingan to copy the hand movements from a hidden Chunin that was writing down the right answers. Bored of this already, I started dozing off. I don't remember how long the exams went on, but I remember waking up to Ibiki's loud voice telling me to wake up. A bit groggy, I looked at him and could see him flinch lightly at my gaze. Not commenting on my slumber any further, he went back to explaining the tense question. Genin after genin left, and when only around 20 were left, he congratulated us on passing. He couldn't even really finish his sentence when Anko entered the room through the closed window. Shards went flying everywhere and the black-haired female stood up front in her usual confidence. Scooting further under my desk, I tried my best to hide from her view. "No time for celebrations. We will move on to the second exam immediately." She started walking down the rows, coming closer and closer to my spot. I, of course, kept scooting farther and farther under the table. Spotting me, she stopped next to me, giving me a sly grin as she saw that I had been already more than halfway under the table. I simply gave her a sheepish grin. "Anko, pleasure seeing you here." Her gaze only darkened before I was heaved from under the desk and crushed between her breasts. "Naru-chan, long time no see." She screeched directly into my ears, making them hurt, and stopped working for several seconds. The crazy woman kept on rambling, but I was more concerned with my air supply that was running short. After flailing around and probably turning blue, Sakura finally had built the courage to speak to her second proctor. "Anko-san, I think you are crushing Naruto." A bit surprised about the girl talking to her, Anko loosened her grip, giving me a chance to escape. Free from her grip, I made a break for the already broken window. "Ah, Naruto." Her loud screams followed me out of the window, but she didn't seem to be following me. I kept running for a few minutes until I stumbled into a certain white-haired man. Naru, shouldn't you be at the exams? His voice was calm and his hands had discarded his favorite book to the floor to catch my fall. Anko, she. Not able to breathe out the words Kakashi gave me a small chuckle. I probably should have warned you. Shocked at this revelation, I slowly looked up towards the man I loved dearly. You knew? How could you? You know how she treats me. He pulled me a bit closer and gave me one of those damned eye smiles. Revenge. For leaving me to go venture through the world. I already had opened my mouth for a comeback, but letting his words hit me, I closed it again, slumping slightly against him. I deserved that and more. Hearing my words, Kakashi started crushing me against him. No, you don't. I was being selfish. I honestly don't want you to leave, but I know you and this village need the break. I already know that you will come back a changed man. A man that will hopefully agree to marry me. Oh my god, he just asked you to marry him. You had to say yes. Naruto, say yes. Kurama kept on screaming in my head to say yes to Kakashi, but I was still trying to process his words. He wanted to marry me. Even after I had told him I was leaving for several years. He was willing to wait and marry me after. How did I deserve a man like that? Looking up into his dark eye, I could see the tension in him. Still waiting for me to give him any kind of answer. Should I really say yes? Was I ready to be committed like this? Just say yes, you idiot. Kurama woke me out of my stupor and I focused back at Kakashi. I think I would really like that. Letting my words trickle into his head, Kakashi visibly relaxed and started full-on smiling at me. You mean it? Giving him a firm nod seemed to calm him and crush me once again. Let's talk about the details later. You have an exam to attend. I nodded and was about to leave when I felt Kakashi hold me back by my hand. Confused, I looked back at him, watching him pull out a silver ring with black lining. It was my father's and now it's yours. With those words and a new ring, he let me rush towards the forest of death. Had I just really gotten engaged to Kakashi? Had I really just agreed to marrying the man I loved? Yes, I thought he didn't have the balls to ask you for at least another few years. Realizing the words coming from the chakra beast inside of me, I stopped jumping from tree to tree. You knew? Why didn't you tell me? You would have freaked and stopped seeing him. You were afraid of commitment, and him having asked you so suddenly made you chose the right answer with your heart and not your brain. Jashin-sama, you just got me engaged to Kakashi through a fucking mind trick. I could hear Kurama's evil chuckle in my head as I started running again. No matter how mad I wanted to be at Kurama, I was secretly thankful he had not told me. Just like he had predicted, I would have said no had I had more time to think it over. Now I was to be married to Kakashi Hitaki. Finally arriving at the training ground, I found the genin being interviewed by Konohamaru and his two friends. Landing silently on a patch of lush grass, it took the three a second to realize I had arrived. Naruto ni. Running towards me, they were screaming my name, startling quite a few genin that hadn't expected their outburst. Stopping in front of me, they started rambling incoherent words. Tired of not knowing what they were rambling about, I raised my hand and silenced the three. Slow down. I don't understand what you are saying. The three took a deep breath and looked at each other before Konohamaru started talking a bit slower this time. Sensei asked us to interview the leaf genin that are taking the exam. You're the only one left, boss. Nodding at his huge smile, I complied and answered their questions one after another. 30 minutes later, we were finally done and the three students left happy with their answers. Leaving me behind with a migraine and an annoyed-tailed beast. You just got engaged and all they cared about was this stupid-ass exam. Ignoring the pouting chakra beast, I started listening to Anko. She rambled about how we could die in this forest and that we needed 2 different scrolls to be allowed inside the tower that stood in the middle of the forest. After finishing her explanation and warnings, she passed out forms that took the responsibility from Anko should someone die. I signed it, not even caring what actually was written down in the fine print. I didn't really care what it said. At a young age, I had signed my life and soul over to Konoha, binding me to this village for life. Sasuke was playing team leader, so we all gave him our slip and he went ahead and got our scroll that we had to keep safe. The ring on my finger was kind of annoying. I wasn't used for something to be on my finger. It was weird, something that kept reminding me that Kakashi was waiting for me to return to him. Sakura kept staring at me until I finally realized that I was fidgeting around with the ring and stopped immediately, carefully placing my hands behind my back. Will you tell them? Maybe, but not right now. Why not? Because we're in the middle of an exam, you idiot. Shutting his whining out, Sasuke finally came back looking a bit nervous. Our gate number is 7. How ironic. His voice was shaking. He definitely was nervous, maybe even a bit scared. We slowly made our way towards our gate. This was it. The exam that I had to analyze the shit out of these two to find out if they were ready to be Chunin. I was the force behind them passing or failing. After this exam, they could win the exam and not be promoted because I said they weren't ready. The gate opened and the two rushed inside with me hot on their tails. After a bit of running, Sasuke slowed down to stop in a clearing. He looked around for a bit and set up a few traps before he started talking. You take the scroll, Naruto. You are the fastest. Sakura and I will buy you time should we get into a bad situation. Sakura looked a bit confused at first, but after a bit of thinking she agreed to Sasuke's plan and I was handed the real scroll. Sasuke took out 2 more scrolls, making 2 exact replicas of the real one. He handed one to Sakura and let her pocket it. The two stayed quiet for a bit until Sasuke spoke up again. You're an Uzumaki, correct? Nodding at the Uchiha a bit confused, he simply gave a grin. Then are you able to sense chakra like the rest of your clan? Shrugging my shoulders, playing innocent, Sasuke went quiet again. He was thinking pretty hard. Tell me, how many of your clan's techniques have you learned? I sighed at this interrogation but complied to him. A few. I'm still a bit confused at what you are trying to get at, Sasuke. He went silent again, irritating me highly. This conversation was getting us nowhere. What was going on in that head of his? Alright, I have a plan. How in the world did he pull a plan out of his ass all of a sudden? Confused about his behavior, I started listening to his explanation. Naruto, you will track down a team with your senses. We will surround them while still hidden. Naruto will be our backup to either hold them down with his chakra chains should they be too strong or try to escape. Sakura, you will make yourself look wounded and lure them into trusting you won't be able to hurt them. Tell them your team was killed or something like that. I will sneak up to them and take out whoever I can as fast as I can. That was a pretty legit plan. Not bad for the brat. That sure is leader potential. I know, stupid. I'm not blind. I was fed up with Kurama right now. He kept babbling about how our wedding should look like and how our babies will be the cutest. It was annoying. Sasuke turned towards me, apparently having talked to Sakura. Can you do that, Naruto? I hated to let them in on how I actually could use my clan's techniques, but I still nodded. Might as well help those two. It would make things easier for me in the long run. Happy with my answer, he turned to Sakura again, that gave a nod and started doing hand signs. With a poof, she stood in front of us with cuts littering her body. Blood running down her face and dirt decorating her hair. That would fool some genins pretty good. Good, Naruto? Sighing, I turned to my left and lifted my hand to point straight ahead. A team from the Stone Village. About a mile that way. Looking at me a bit shocked, Sasuke gave me a nod and made his way towards a branch. Right before he set off into a sprint, he turned to me looking a bit suspicious. How strong are you actually, dope? Rolling my eyes, I jumped past him to the next branch. None of your business, Teme. Not caring if they were following me, I started making my way towards the team from the stone. Their chakra signatures were pretty weak, but there was a 50-50 chance they didn't have an earth scroll. The scroll that we needed to be able to pass this test. After a while of jumping from branch to branch, I stopped and not a second later Sakura and Sasuke landed behind me out of breath. I now see why he is the fastest. Sakura huffed and stood up straight again. She still looked a mess and I was surprised she even agreed to do this. Alright, everyone knows the plan. Sakura, you go down when you are ready. Naruto, do not slack off. As if I could. If something happened to these two brats, I would be banished before I could say Konoha. I simply gave him a wave with my hand and he started making his way into his position. Sakura was underneath me waiting for me to signal to her that Sasuke was ready. It took a few minutes, but as soon as I gave her the signal, she burst through the bushes with a loud heave and a pretty real sounding cough. Blood was now flowing out of her mouth. Help, please. She slumped to her knees, coughing again. She is a pretty good actress. That she is. With a strained expression, she looked up at the three males, tears now freely running. Please, I don't want to die. The three looked at each other and slowly approached her. They were cautious, but with another blood-filled cough from Sakura, that caution flew out of the window and they approached her with sly grins on their faces. Disgusting little shits. You would do the same. No, I would just leave her to die. True, but they have a mission to fulfill. They started asking her what had happened to her team, which she only answered with a choked-up sob. Lord, she was good. They by now had completely let down their guard and had their full focus on Sakura. Sasuke was making his move. He quietly stepped closer towards the three, and not a second later one was down on the ground unconscious. Neither of the other two seemed to notice until Sasuke stepped on a twig. Hitting my head on the tree I was standing on in frustration, Sakura jumped into action, taking out the one that was closest to her. Really? She seemed annoyed, making me grin at the annoyed Sasuke. That was probably about ready to hit himself for that rookie mistake. The third of the bunch looked at the two a bit scared. Sakura's getup having disappeared a second ago. Not seeing a need to stay hidden for this last one, I jumped down, making myself seen in the clearing. That was a stupid mistake. I smiled as Sasuke looked at me angrily. I know, now shut up, dope. Holding up my hands in surrender, I let him continue his master plan. It took a few minutes of scaring the kid half to death before he told us where the scroll is. Luckily it was the right one. With now both scrolls in my possession, we started our track to the tower. I can't believe I wasted my childhood for this. Babysitting little Genin. It took us a few hours to reach the tower, and it was about to get dark when we got inside. A riddle was written on the wall opposite to the door, and the two little Genin started guessing until Sakura turned to me. Naruto, mind handing me those scrolls? Sasuke looked at her a bit confused, but after I handed her the scrolls and she threw them away from her while opening them, he seemed to understand. A summoning seal. Iruka popped up and congratulated us and led us to an unoccupied room to let us rest for a while. 3 days went by and it was finally only 5 more minutes until the exam was over. Excited to finally be rid of this annoying mission, I practically skipped towards the big hall where they planned on doing pre-elimination rounds. Around 8 teams had made it. All the Konoha teams were present as expected. Tsunade stood up on a statue and looked down on us with the old man next to her and several Junin. She started congratulating the Genin on passing this test and telling them about the elimination round, but before she could tell the Junin to start, Gigi stepped up and yelled, "Naruto, get back to your duties." With a stone-cold expression, I bowed to the third and went up in flames. Not a second I landed next to him, back in my original form with my usual loose attire and seals covering most of my body. "Lady Hokage, Lord Third." I bowed my head again and turned towards the Genin that were staring at me in awe and mostly confused. "I don't know what the protocol is for revealing your secret identity, so, hi." Surprise? Sasuke slumped a bit and hit himself on the head. Sakura still looked a bit lost like everyone else except for Shikamaru and everyone above Genin. I could hear Sasuke muttering something along the lines of, "I should have known," and, "No wonder he has so much chakra," to himself. That was fun. Sure as hell was amusing to watch. Sasuke looked like he was about to bust a fuse with his constant muttering about how it was all logical. My ass was logical. He was completely in the dark about this. There was no need to try and rescue your honor. Never had any in the first place. Placed next to Lord Third, I watched the many Genin fight each other and making it to the finals. Obviously, Sasuke won and moved up to the finals. When Sakura's turn finally came, I was surprised with a victory on her part. After the announcements had been made and the Genin were filing out of the building and back to their homes or hotel rooms, I snatched both Sasuke and Sakura from the crowd. Sakura was a bit startled to all of a sudden be standing in my living room, and Sasuke stated, rambling, "How could you not tell us? I thought we were supposed to be a team? Why wouldn't you tell us? This is ridiculous. Are you working with Itachi? Has he sent you?" With every second I let him continue his rambling, the Oi strayed further from the topic at hand. It was quite funny to watch the almighty Sasuke crumble into a rambling child. "Alright, shut up." My voice was firm and so was my posture, making both of them quickly shut their mouths and look at me. "I work with nobody but myself. And I didn't tell you bunch of this because I was ordered not to." Easy as that. I shrugged and slumped down on my couch. "Listen, there is a month left before the finals start and neither of you two is fit to be a Chunin yet." Before I could finish my thought process, the door of the apartment opened and Kakashi walked in. "I'm home." His voice was a bit on the boring side and he probably already knew that both of his Genin students were currently residing in his living room. "I'm glad you're home. Come and listen to my training plan for these two." Both Sasuke and Sakura seemed a bit taken aback by my words, but not 2 seconds later Kakashi calmly strode through the living room door and sat down next to me. Closely being watched by the two genin, he started scooting closer to me until he was completely snuggled into my side, not caring about his two students gaping at him. "When you're finally done getting comfortable, I'll continue where you interrupted me." With a wave of his gloved hand, I started talking again. "Sakura, you need to work on your combat skills. Your book smarts are superb and in theory, you make a wonderful shinobi, but you lack the practical skills." Her head dropped before she gave me a weak nod. "Sasuke, you need to work on, well, your everything. Neither your book smarts nor your combat skills are really brag-worthy. Plus you haven't completely mastered your Sharingan, so that's another thing we will have to work on." Sasuke opened his mouth to argue with me, but my glare shot him down before the first sound could even leave his throat. "I will leave after the finals are over. If you don't pass these exams, there will be no further help for the next exams you would be able to take." We continued strategizing their workout regimen for the next month before the two started on their way back home for the night. The next morning came way too fast. I was still trapped between Kakashi's build arms and his toned legs as Sasuke jumped through the window. At this point, the sun hadn't even started coming up. He looked at me a bit confused until he opened the room door and walked into our kitchen. Sighing a bit irritated, I started wiggling my way out of Kakashi's firm death grip. It took me about 10 minutes to get free and about 3 failed attempts. But I finally was dressed and walking into my kitchen where Sasuke had made himself at home. With a cup of tea in his one hand, an Ichia book in his other, and most likely a tomato still being chewed in his mouth, he looked at me. "Morning, sensei." His greeting was a bit slurred with his huge bite of tomato still in his mouth. Shaking my head, I made myself a tea and some bread before I sat down in a chair opposite of Sasuke. We quietly finished our breakfasts before Sasuke put back the book and stared at me. "That's quite a creepy look," says the nine-tailed chakra beast with glowing red eyes. "Touché." Ignoring Kura, I put on my shoes and opened the front door. "Let's go. We're starting with 3 laps around Konoha. After we will pick up Sakura and do another 2 laps. Not waiting for his reaction, I rushed onto the street and took off Sasuke not far behind me. With Sasuke's speed, it took us about an hour to do 3 laps and head to Sakura's place. The duckboat was heaving behind me as I calmly knocked on the door of the 2-story building. It didn't take long for the door to open and Sakura's mother peered through the slit that had appeared. "Yes?" She looked like she had just gotten out of bed, and before I could say what I was here for, a window opened above us and Sakura leapt out. "I'll be heading to training now, mother." With a nod and to be safe, her mother closed the door on us. "So, what are we starting with?" She looked a bit confused about Sasuke's heavy breath but simply shrugged it off. 2 laps around Konoha and then you will be moving on to basic combat and Sasuke will be hitting the books with Kakashi. It took another hour for us to finish and now both genin were laying in the grass heaving for air. "That's some low-ass stamina. They should probably work on that." "Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Why do you think I am training them again? So we can finally leave this wretched village for a while?" "Well, yes, but to do that these two need to get better. Become chunin in every sense of the word." "Alright, well, then I'll be taking a nap. Good night." Not even trying to argue, I let Kurama go off into La La Land and started combat training with Sakura. Kakashi and Sasuke sat not too far away against a tree. Both of them were holding books and Sasuke was scribbling in a notebook like a madman. The day went by pretty fast and soon enough I found myself snuggled back into Kakashi in our soft bed. "Just 1 more month." His voice was sad and so quiet I almost hadn't caught what he said. "I will write to you every day and before you'll know it, I'll be back at your side as your lawfully wedded husband." He gave me a tired sigh. "You better or I will go ahead and find you and lock you up in here for the rest of both our lives." Chuckling at his words, I gave him a kiss on the lips. "I promise to return before you have to do that." I got a smile out of him before we both said our good nights and went to sleep. Days flew past and so did the weeks, and not soon after the month was over. Sakura had drastically improved in her combat and jutsu abilities. Sasuke had started training his Sharingan in the 3 Tomo stage and he had gotten pretty decent with it. His combat was now on par with Rock Lee's and his smarts had also skyrocketed with the right training. Standing next to Lord Third and looking down at all the genin again, Kurama started talking again. "Not bad. Didn't think you would survive this month. or get both of them this far ahead in their training. Ignoring his true words, I listened to the rule announcement and watched the battles wage on. Sasuke's battle was first, and while he was against Gaara the one-tailed Jinchuriki, he held his ground for a long 15 minutes. In the end, he lost against the power of the chakra beast. I clapped for him with the rest of the citizen. He had a good run, but he never even stood a chance against someone that was being controlled by his monster. Standing behind the third, I saw his head nod in approval, letting a huge stone fall from my shoulders. I'm glad he thought the fight was a good one. He was one of the few people I never wanted to disappoint. Lord Third was important to me, and I'm not sure what I would do if I ever disappointed him. Another reason I haven't turned rouge yet. Watching the rest of the battles, I was proud to say Sakura held her ground against a cloud ninja and even won. Seeing his teammate win bummed Sasuke out, but with his opponent, there wasn't really any chance for him to win. Lord Third seemed happy with his current genin, and I was glad he was. There were many future clan heads this year, so it was expected. The civilians really didn't have any chance to become genin this year, but maybe next year some good civilians will graduate. The last battle was decided and Gaara came out as the winner. It was expected of me, but still nice to see his siblings congratulating him with happy smiles. Lady Hokage held a quick speech and announced that the future Chunin would be announced throughout the next week. The guests started making their way out of the arena and Lord Third stood up from his seat. Good job, Naruto. You did well, and I expect both Sasuke and Sakura to be promoted during the next week. As I promised, I will speak to Tsunade and finish up your papers for your training trip. Jiraiya made a request to take you with him for a while. That could be quite interesting, don't you think? The old man gave me a fatherly smile and ruffled my hair. Now go congratulate your team. They deserve it, and I think Sasuke could use a pick-me-up. Looking down to the two genin that were standing around the battleground looking up to the stand Lord Third and I were standing on. With a nod and a bow, I excused myself and jumped down to meet the two genin. Would you look at that? The Uchiha lost. Sasuke's glare settled on me, making me laugh out loud. Relax. I'm here to congratulate both of you. While neither of you made first place, both of your battles were impressive and deserving of a Chunin. Sakura, that was still a bit winded from her battle, smiled at me brightly and started blushing. I'm just glad it's finally over and no one from Konoha actually died during these exams. Nodding, I looked around, seeing that no one was around anymore. If you're looking for Kakashi-sensei, he left not too long ago. Said something about a surprise and having to hurry. Nodding at the duck butt, I started walking out of the arena. Both genin watched me walk away. Stop staring and get a move on. It's time to celebrate. I'm cooking. With newfound strength, both of them ran up to me, following me back to my apartment. As I opened the door, we were welcomed by Kakashi and an already full table. He smiled brightly at us before he welcomed me home. Welcome home, Naru. Let's eat something before everything gets cold. The two genin didn't wait for another invitation and took their shoes off, sitting at the table and looking at us expectantly at an incredible speed. Smiling, I took off my shoes and gave Kakashi a quick kiss on the cheek before sitting down at the table. After dinner was done, Sakura excused herself and headed on out. Sasuke had already made himself at home and was only a small blanket mountain on my couch. Kakashi was helping me finish up around the kitchen. He was awfully quiet and seemed to avoid my eyes. Setting down the last cup, I turned towards him and frowned. What's wrong? Surprised by the sudden question, he looked at me and I could finally see the sadness in his eyes. Is this still because of my departure in a few days? He nodded slowly, his eyes wandering to the floor and his chin sinking down. Sighing, I pulled him closer to me and did my best in hugging him. It was a bit weird with him still being a lot taller than me. I'm sorry, but I really had to leave. I would take you with me, but Konoha needs you here. But I need you here too. Smiling at his quiet words, I cupped his still masked cheek. And I need you, but I need a break from this village. Just for a few months. Kakashi rested his head on my shoulder with a tired sigh. Are you leaving? Looking up, I found Sasuke standing in the doorway to the kitchen with a huge blanket on his shoulders. His clothes were crumpled and his hair was standing directions. All in all, he looked like a toddler that was just woken up from his nap. Smiling at him, I gave him a nod. But before I could further explain, he went off on a rant again. What? Why? You can't just leave. Who will train me? Where are you going? Why are you leaving? What will happen to Team 7? Why weren't we informed about this? Sniggering at his words, I waited for him to finish. It took a few minutes until he calmed down again. I'll just be leaving for a few months. Maybe a year. I'm going to travel the world to see what I can learn and find. Sasuke, now just as sad and upset as Kakashi, gave me a small nod but curled up into himself just like Kakashi had a few minutes ago. Sighing, I pushed both of them back into the living room. Stop being so down. I'm coming back. You'll still have each other, and if you stay on training with Kakashi, I'll be back before you'll even notice I was gone. I was now seated with Kakashi snuggled in on my right side and Sasuke on my left snuggled into his blanket. He pouted for another few minutes until he gave me a nod and a sigh. Fine, but you have to write every day. I gave the boy a nod and smile, satisfying him. I let the two of them on the couch for a while until I was ready to go to bed. Turning to Sasuke, I found him asleep in his mountain of blankets. Smiling, I let him be and simply heaved up Kakashi that had also fallen asleep and threw him on our bed. The sudden movement woke him up and he stared at me through tired eyes. Time for bed, Kashi. Not even questioning me, he started stripping to his boxers and simply flopped back on the bed. Rolling my eyes, I pulled out the blanket from under him and pushed him to the side so I had enough space to lay down. The days went by faster than I had expected and I was already a week after the Chunin exams. Both Sakura and Sasuke had been training this whole week and had now been summoned to the Hokage. Aware of what would happen, I followed silently and waited for them outside of the office. It took several minutes for them to walk back out with huge smiles and both a Chunin jacket in their hands. Good job, guys. Go celebrate. I still have some business with Lady Hokage. Both of the new Chunin gave me a nod and headed on out of the building. Entering the office, I bowed to my godmother. Ah, Naruto. Here for your passes? Nodding, I watched as she got together all the documents I would need and handed them to me. I looked through them and gave her a small bow. Thank you, Lady Hokage. I will be taking my leave now. Be careful out there, Naruto. We need you back. Not answering her, I left the building, walking back home to find Kakashi in the kitchen with both Sasuke and Sakura. Welcome home. He gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and smiled down at me. Seeing the papers in my hand, his smile turned pained. When will you leave? Laying the papers down on the counter, I got myself a glass of water. Well, Jiraiya asked me to join him and he will be leaving tomorrow. Sighing, Kakashi gave me a nod and turned back to his two students. That will only leave us. Whatever will we do for so long? Rolling my eyes at Kashi's antics, I wrapped my arms around his neck. That I could only reach because he was sitting on a chair. Calm down, would you? You sound like I'll go and die tomorrow. Sakura giggled lightly at my words and Sasuke looked highly amused about our conversation. Fine, but you better wake me before you leave tomorrow. Agreeing with his conditions, he finally stopped moping around and started up a light conversation with his students. We'll finally be free tomorrow. Yes, but it would be a lot better if we could take Kakashi with us. He really got you whipped, huh? Shut it. Ignoring Kurama's loud-ass laugh, I listened to my team joke around for the rest of the night. Rays of sunshine fell through our window, waking me in the process. Kakashi was still clinging to me desperately and I could hear Sasuke shuffling things around in the kitchen. Honestly, this brat has made himself way too comfortable in my apartment. Struggling out of Kakashi's death grip, I started my day with a nice long shower. I was in there for like half an hour, which was quite soothing. Walking back into our bedroom, I found Kakashi sprawled out on the bed, still snoring lightly. Walking out into the kitchen, I found Sasuke sipping tea and reading one of our many books. Morning. He only gave me a nod and went back to his book. Little shit is getting way too comfortable in this apartment. I started making Kakashi and me some breakfast, and as soon as it was finished, a groggy Kakashi appeared in the kitchen doorway. He swayed his way towards the table and sat down with a thud. With his breakfast in front of him, his eyes started to focus and his mind seemed to slowly wake up. After wolfing down his breakfast, he looked up to me with a smile. Thank you for the food. Smiling, I gave him a kiss on his cheek and started cleaning. I'm leaving for the gates in about an hour. Do you two want to come? Kashi sighed but gave me a nod and Sasuke followed soon after he had set his now empty tea down. Alright, then I will go and pack real quick. Walking back into our bedroom, I could hear another thud and some muffled voices. Ignoring the two guys in my kitchen, I started sealing a bunch of clothes, equipment and necessities into the seals all over my body. Sealing my last kunai away, I went back into the kitchen and started packing some food for a few days into a bag. Checking the time, I still had a bunch of time, so I made my way towards the living room and snuggled into Kakashi that had seated himself on our large couch with his favorite Icha book. We just sat there together for a while, me dozing off a little and Kashi reading. "Where's Sasuke?" My voice was quiet and muffled by Kakashi's shirt. "He went out to train for a bit and get Sakura to say goodbye to you." Nodding, I looked up at the clock and found that it was almost time to leave. I peeled myself slowly off of Kakashi and started putting on my shoes and headband. Kakashi followed suit and put on his shoes. Our walk towards the gate was filled with silence and his hand was clutching mine so hard I started to lose circulation. It took us 10 minutes to walk to the gate as we were walking very slowly. As we approached, I could already see Sakura's pink hair and her light pink dress. She really needs a change of clothes. I should probably tell her before I leave. The two of them were holding small packages in their hands. Behind both of them stood Jiraiya with a big goofy smile on his face. We stopped in front of the three, Kakashi still refusing to let go of my hand as I talked to the two new Chunins. "Alright, Sakura, I want you to work hard under Lady Tsunade and learn everything you can regarding medical issues and chakra. Also, please get an outfit less bright. Something that will hide you in the forest and not make you a flashing target." With a sheepish smile, she gave me a nod and handed me her package. "I will. I got you some herbs and nutrition pills. As a small thank you for getting me my spot as Tsunade's apprentice." Smiling, I looked at Sasuke that was fidgeting around with his package and seemed to find the ground a lot more interesting than our conversation. Still not looking at me, he pushed his package into my arms and a small blush seemed to creep up his cheeks. "Just a little something to make sure you come back." Nodding a bit confused, I didn't question him and smiled. "Promise me to keep training with Kakashi and continue growing in rank. When I get back, I want you to be at least Junin. If not Anbu, and do me a favor, keep Kakashi and yourself safe. I don't want to be informed by Lord Third that either of you did something stupid like going rogue or something." Smiling at me, Sasuke gave a small nod. Snatching Sakura's wrist, he pulled her with him away from the gate before screaming, "Stay safe and don't you dare not come back, Dobi." Rolling my eyes, I lifted my hand in a silent goodbye. Kakashi had stored the two packages safely into my bag and was still clutching my hand. "I hate this." Kakashi's voice was so quiet I almost didn't catch it. Looking up at him, I gave him a sad smile. "I know. It's not the best situation, but you need to stay here and keep Konoha and both of your students safe. You'll be fine." Sighing, he gave me a nod and pulled me closer into his arms. "Stay safe." I gave him a kiss on his mask and turned towards Jiraiya. "Alright, let's go, old perv." I walked past him out of the gates, ignoring his loud complaints about being called an old perv. I really didn't want to leave my loved ones, but it was impossible to take such strong assets to the village with me for my selfish reasons. It took some hours for Jiraiya to calm down and stop rambling. His shoulders slugged down a little. Ha gave me a big smile before he started talking again. "So, where are we going?" Thinking about where to go first, I shrugged a little. "I guess all the small villages we can find before we reach Suna. I have a Jinchuriki to talk to there, and then we move forward from there." Nodding at my reasoning, he took the lead to show me to the entire small villages around Konoha that he knew of. A year-long listening to constant jabbering from Jiraiya and another year-long traveling on my own, I was back. The huge red gates in front of me taunted me for my long absence. Kakashi wasn't too amused when he found out I was planning on traveling on my own for a while. He was even less amused to find out why I was traveling alone. The old perv had made his way back to Konoha after a year of traveling with me. I had constantly edged him on to return to his home and help out keeping it safe as the organization Akatsuki started to become a bigger threat every day. He told me repeatedly that it was fine and that Konoha was safe with Tsunade being there, but I knew how to get him to return. So he came back a year before I did. Of course, I hadn't returned empty-handed. To my left was our own Uchiha heir in rouge, Itachi. To my right stood, still in a mask covered, Obito. Kakashi's former teammate that he had thought died many moons ago, and behind me stood the former students of Jiraiya Konan and Nagato Uzumaki. "Well, let's mess some things up." Smiling at Itachi, I stepped forward to the now constantly closed gates and gave them a good pull. With a bit of a creak, they swung open to reveal Konoha's bustling streets and a very angry-looking Kakashi. Ah, honey, I'm home. I tried giving Kakashi my best dazzling smile, but it probably looked a bit pained and anxious. 2 years. 2 years you make me wait and then you turn up with Akatsuki members? What were you thinking? I tried to calm him down, but with two snickering shinobi next to me it was a bit hard. After a bit of a rampage, he calmed down and looked at my guests. So, who did you bring here? Obviously Sasuke will be thrilled to see Itachi back right after going off and murdering Danzo, but who is the rest? Calming down, I ushered the 5 of us inside the village and got us signed in by Izumo and Kotetsu. Well, the blue-haired Oni-chan is Konan, a former student of Jiraiya. Next to her is Nagato Uzumaki, a distant cousin of mine and one of Jiraiya's former students. You already know Itachi, and the other mystery person only needs to take off his mask for you to see who he is. Turning expectantly towards Obito, I gave him a glare to finally take off his stupid mask. Why do I have to take off my mask? He is still wearing one too. His voice that spoke these childish thoughts made Kakashi hold his breath. Pouting, he pulled down his mask, revealing his typical onyx eyes and black hair to his former friend. Obito wasn't even able to say anything before Kakashi tackled him to the ground. Obito. He seemed happy for a moment before his feature got dark and Obito visibly shrunk into himself. Where were you? Why didn't you see it important enough to come and at least let me know you were still alive? What the fuck, man? Kakashi looked like he was ready to keep rambling on, but I stopped him by laying my hand on his shoulder. We can figure out why and how later. Let's go visit Ba-chan and tell her I'm back. Would you mind fetching the old perv for me? I think he has some people he needs to meet. Sighing, Kakashi got off his old friend and gave me a nod. Alright, but I'm nowhere near with being done with you two. He waved his fingers around angrily and took off to find his idol. While he took care of that, we started making our way through Konoha towards the Hokage Tower. The two Uchihas got confused looks from the many civilians and shinobi we passed. None of us were wearing our headbands, indicating that we neither belonged to this or any other village. We walked for a long time and word spread fast. When we arrived at the tower, an angry Sasuke and an exited Sakura waited for us. Both had grown considerably just like I had, and Sakura was now wearing darker clothes that made her look a lot more professional and grown. Sasuke was clothed in Anbu pants and a traditional top with the Uchiha symbol proudly displayed on his back. His hair had grown out, making him look a lot more like Madara than he had probably planned. Sakura, you look gorgeous. I gave her a smile and a pat on the head. After being gone for 2 years I had grown a lot. With 6 feet 3 inches I was close to being as tall as Kisame, which I was proud of. Turning towards Sasuke, my smile slowly slipped. You didn't see it worth your time to visit before you took on the Akatsuki? Or at least wrote a letter about it? At a loss of words, I shrugged at him, making him sigh. You're such an idiot. So, mind explaining to me what half of the Akatsuki are doing here? Scratching the back of my head, I gave him an uncomfortable smile. You see, funny story actually. We all got talking while they were trying to take me prisoner, and one thing led to another. Now every member is returning to their former home and returning to their ninja duties after going through obvious punishment. Sighing, Sasuke left my explanation at what it was, turning towards the other two Uchihas. Welcome home, Oni-san. You too, Obito. Quote. With that, he turned around, making his way up towards the Hokage office. I'm glad you're back, Naruto. Kakashi was going crazy when you wrote him you would be gone longer than anticipated. Quote. Smiling at her, I started walking after Sasuke, followed by the rest of the Akatsuki that had no place to return to. My dreaded walk ended way too soon, and before I realized it I stood in front of our current Hokage, Lady Tsunade, Lord Third, Jiraiya, Kakashi and Sasuke. If that wasn't intimidating, I really don't know what could be. I'm glad you're back, Naruto. Kakashi was going crazy when you wrote him you would be gone longer than anticipated. Quote. Smiling at her, I started walking after Sasuke, followed by the rest of the Akatsuki that had no place to return to. My dreaded walk ended way too soon, and before I realized it I stood in front of our current Hokage, Lady Tsunade, Lord Third, Jiraiya, Kakashi and Sasuke. If that wasn't intimidating, I really don't know what could be. Glad you're back, my boy. Lord Third gave me a warm smile as he sat down on one of the sofas at the side of the office. Nodding at my surrogate grandfather, I waited on the unavoidable lecture that was about to happen. Naruto, I am glad you're back, but what in the world were you thinking? going off on your own fighting and rescuing Jinchuriku. Your intentions were noble as always, but you should have asked for backup or at least told us your plans and not simply send Jiraiya back with some very vague information. Nodding at Tsunade Ba-chan sheepishly, she let out a large sigh and slumped back in her seat. Well, at least you're back, unharmed and with new ninja. Now it will take a few days for me to clear their names, especially yours, Itachi. The ravenet next to me gave Lady Hokage a grateful nod. Now, I believe you have a few things to take care of and a lot to explain to your future husband. I will take care of your friends and you go home for today. Sighing, I turned towards the last Akatsuki members and gave them a smile. I'll visit you all tomorrow. Ba-chan will take care of you for now. Before I could mutter any other words, I felt myself being lifted off the ground and slung over a broad pair of shoulders. Time for a talk, dearest. Dreading Kakashi's tone, I simply slumped and let him carry me home like some drunk idiot. I saw Sasuke and Sakura follow suit behind us, snickering at my predicament. Tapping his well-toned butt from time to time, I started passing the time until we finally got back to our apartment. Kakashi practically slammed the door open and threw me on the couch. Nothing had really changed over the years I was gone. The apartment still felt like home and Sasuke still seemed to make himself at home here more than he should. Now, please do explain to me where you have been. Looking into Kakashi's furious eyes, I felt my large statue shrink down, making me feel 15 again. You see, it's a funny story. After I learned everything Jiraiya had to teach me, I thought it would be a good idea to go after the Akatsuki. Kakashi huffed in annoyance, not understanding where I was coming from. How in the world could you think going after the Akatsuki on your own would be a good idea? I smiled sheepishly at him and scratched the back of my neck. Well, they were already after me, and to keep Konoha and the other Jinchuriki that I'm really good friends with safe, I just decided it would be best to just go and fight them one by one. I could see angry steam releasing itself from Kakashi's head. I can't believe you would do something like that after you promised me to stay safe. I shrugged slightly. It's not like I actually fought every one of them. I only fought Zetsu and Hidan. The rest kind of calmed down after I stated my case. That seemed to calm Kakashi down a bit and raised the interest of both my former genin. You see, I did have everything planned out. I didn't just blindly charge at the Akatsuki hoping I would change their point of view on things. No, I went to their respective villages, asked about their lives and carriers, and most of the villages gladly took their ninja back and most of them returned home without a fuss. Sure, there were one or two villages that made a huge commotion, but after some calm talking they all had no problem with taking them back. Letting my words sink in, the three huffed at me and Kakashi completely calmed down and sat down next to me. You know, you could have told us your plans. That way we wouldn't have worried so much about you when Jiraiya-sama came back without you telling us you told him to come back for his own safety and that of the village. Nodding, I slumped down further into the couch. I got where they were coming from, but at the time there wasn't much I could discuss via letter. The danger of my plan coming out and/or being enclosed to the wrong people could have endangered Konoha. I'm sorry, but it was the only way to keep everyone safe. Sighing, Kakashi gave me a nod and pulled me closer. He let me snuggle into his chest even though I now was taller and wider than him. Sakura and Sasuke sat themselves down on the floor and watched us for a minute. Where did you get those tattoos, Naruto? Looking down on my arm, I pulled my sleeve up to reveal more of the tattoo. It was a simple barbed wire that wrapped its way up from my wrist to my shoulder. Ah, Kurama gave it to me. It just binds him to my body. I did release the seal that was on my stomach, so not soon after the wire appeared. He said something about symbols and that I should stop complaining because it looked cool. I rolled my eyes as I remembered the night my tattoo appeared. It honestly was annoying how Kurama had not told me a single word about this happening after I released the seal. He could have at least told me something like this would happen. Even though I was glad to be back. To be back by Kakashi's side. To be back in my village. To be back home. I was glad not much had changed and sure that everything would turn out just right now that all danger was gone for now. So, how in the world did you find Obito? Snickering at the story on how I figured out that the childish Toby was actually a former Konoha ninja, I snuggled closer to Kakashi. It was actually a real weird accident. You see, I had been on the road for about a month alone, and after a month I really needed a bath. Telling my story, I was sure everything would be just fine. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.